numbers. Everybody's favorite number, right? Who here was a math lover? Anybody? Oh wow, no one. You were?
Yeah.
Awesome. There's always one in the class. I have to say I was always terrified of math, but somehow, some way, it became part of our lives in real estate too. So, right? Although I do admit that real estate, when I teach pre-licensing, real estate math is totally goes against everything with regular math. I had a math student, a math teacher, math professor in my real estate class, my pre-licensing class last time, and he's like, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, yeah, right? But it's real estate, right? So today, some of the housekeeping is, it is a 3-hour CE. This will be the first time this class is offered, so I know you haven't taken it, but you can only do it once every 12 months. Additionally, it is provided through my school, which is Abide Academy of Real Estate, and no recruiting can happen during that time, no name badges, nothing like that during real estate classes. That is a REC requirement, Georgia Real Estate Commission requirement. Due to the fact that today we're all in one place, we're all collaborative real estate agents. Anybody here, just out of curiosity, anybody here not a realtor, but you're a real estate agent? Okay, one? Okay. There's usually a couple of you, and so, but you have FMLS access? Do you use FMLS? No? Okay. So we'll be talking about FMLS. Yeah, you do use that.
Somehow I don't have MLS.
Okay, yeah, you can choose to have GMLS or FMLS, but I was going to say you should have access to FMLS because I'm going to be showing you a lot with FMLS. If you have computers, you're welcome to use them, as we're going to be doing a lot of collaborative on, in-person kind of thing, like on top of stuff. Who am I? My name is Deborah Bettolotti. I'm a real estate instructor, been licensed as a realtor since 1994, so a couple of years. And I'm also a broker, associate broker here, compliance broker here at Maximum One Executive Realtors. And my husband's also a broker, and my daughter's also a realtor. So between all of us, we all have something to do with Maximum One as well. She's a TC for Maximum One now, by the way. I don't know if you saw that email, but that was my daughter. So yeah, that's my daughter. So with that being said, but my most proud accomplishment is not that. My most proud accomplishment is this. So those are my 9 grandsons. Not a single girl. And they're all saying they're done, so I think we're done. So we just are gonna have boys. So, but yeah, with my youngest one being this one right here. Oops, why isn't it showing? Oh well. But this is my youngest one right here. He's 8 weeks. And my oldest one is on the top left, and he is just turned 6.
Looks like your husband now.
The one on the left?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they all have his eyes, so you can tell which ones are those. So this one, this one, this one, and this one are one mama.
Mm-hmm.
So they all have the big blue eyes. But and then my top left one is my little type 1 diabetic, which is why I'm so passionate about type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed at 11 months, so we almost lost him, but we love him. But that's my most proud accomplishment. So with that being said, we're going to be talking about many things when it comes to numbers. But actually, before we go there, I want to ask you guys, what's in the air right now? What are we all kind of talking about? What's been talked about is the NAR settlement, right? The NAR settlement. We've all been talking about it till we're exhausted, right? But the funny part is every class lately I've said, so who can tell me what the NAR settlement really is? Does anyone really know? Does anyone know what caused it? Does anyone know how to explain it? That's the sad part. Because the reality is there is so much false news on the television right now that you have to be cautious and understand what the facts are in order to best explain yourself and explain and promote your value. So I'll give you a very brief 5-minute synopsis of it, but basically it was due to the fact that, well, it started with several different cases, but one of the cases was an agent called a listing agent and said, hey, Michael, I want to show your listing. Michael's like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And he goes, yeah, but I looked at the MLS and you're just not operating enough money. as compensation or commission at that time. And so Michael put him on speaker. He happened to be in front of, it wasn't Michael obviously, but he put him on speaker and in front of his seller, and the seller heard what was said. And his seller said, what is going on? Because the agent said, I won't show it unless you offer more. So tell your seller to offer more. What do you guys think about that? You know, that's not cool, because the code of ethics says, if you're a realtor, the code of ethics says that if you're a realtor, you have to look out for the best interest of your client, regardless if it's a financial distress to you. Y'all aware of that? It means it's not about me, it's about my client. So everything has to be looked at through the eyes of the client. So when this particular seller heard that, he got quite angry. And he's like, that's not cool. And he started talking to other sellers, attorneys, DOJ started coming on board. DOJ, Department of Justice, said, gonna investigate this. And started having investigators in there, and they started hearing, well, the norm is, or this is what everyone charges, or the standard is. Those are all bad words in real estate, because there is no standard. Commission has always been negotiable, but we were behaving as if it wasn't, right? So that created an issue that caused us to be in this settlement, in this lawsuit, which was due to the fact that they said we were price fixing, because we said we weren't going to show unless we were being offered something. With that happening, they actually went into private Facebook groups in Kansas. I just actually was with a bunch of people from Kansas at a conference. And at this conference, they were telling me, you know, Kansas was one of the 18 states that actually had buyer brokerage agreement as a law, just like Georgia. But they themselves, in their big company, private Facebook, stated, I'm not showing that property. Can you believe that agent, Patty? She's only offering X amount. And all this happens, so DOJ starts researching, because remember, you're never private, right? Especially on social media. I don't care how private that Facebook group is. And they found over 10,000 posts that stated the same thing. So we did it to ourselves as agents. Can't blame NARC. Can't blame any type of union organization or DOJ. This was us that did that by commenting and stating things like that. So they created the lawsuit, or they decided on the lawsuit, which has not yet been approved, but it's very likely to be approved in November or December, I believe, that states that as of August 17, co-op compensations will not be shown in board-owned MLSs. Keep in mind, FMLS is not a board-owned MLS. So they have decided to keep some aspects of it, which I think is going to be somewhat confusing, because we're going to have GMLS, who is a board-owned, and FMLS that is not a board-owned. So we're going to have some tension, let's put it that way, because there's going to be different things being said on both. However, what was brought up at this conference where all these regulators were they stated, be careful, even if it's a non-board MLS, because the DOJ is still watching. So I would urge you to operate as if it were a board-owned MLS because of that fact. The other comment they made to me was, well, compensation is, since we've always said is negotiable, then perhaps you should consider, and if you're a realtor and you want to do what's best for the client, and even if you're not a realtor, I'm sure you want to do what's best for your client, that you have to think, is it really in my client's best interest to offer compensation? What do y'all think about that? Is it in your client's best interest to offer compensation to another realtor, to a co-op? What do y'all think?
Yes.
You think so? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. Because I thought so too, until I heard them say that. So I'm going to give you an example. There's a house, I'm going to list it at $500K. the houses in that neighborhood are selling right around 5 to 505. They're selling in 1 to 3 days on the market. They're usually in multiple offers. And there's a lack of inventory. Is it in my seller's best interest to offer compensation? No. It's going to sell, right? So we've got to think through these things. Now, we change it, we say it's 101 to 103 days, and the houses are selling at 425, and there's an over amount, there's a too much inventory, then is it in the best interest? But then I give you this option, or this thought. Why is it in the best interest? Are we still going back to what we were saying? So we've got to be cautious, because what they said, the reason for the settlement and for everything to change is to avoid steering. You guys remember that word from school? If we're saying that a house will not be shown unless compensation is offered, we're steering. It's no different. So we're actually, my husband still sells, he's actually doing the first listing with no compensation offered to the co-op. It's not in a high selling area, but at the same time, here's the dilemma on that one, and this is a positive that I want you guys to think about. This particular seller called him and said, I can't pay you. I don't have enough equity in it, so I'm just gonna go for sale by owner. But if you bring me a buyer, I'll pay you X amount. So his thought process was, wait a minute, you're willing to pay me half that amount, which most FSBOs are, right? Why don't I just list it for that, not offer the other co-op and represent you and get more exposure for it? You see what I'm saying? That's a positive, because now you can go to your FSBOs and say, no, let's reverse the thought process. You have the option of having a professional real estate agent representing you, and you're willing to spend that money already. So now you're just going to spend it in a better way. Make sense? So that's a positive. I don't know how it's going to go. We're going to see. And especially because he's doing it before August 17th, because August 17th is the D-Day. But we're going to try it. It'll be a good test study. She knows what the situation is. But you've got to think through the client. And so we would have had two options to say, sorry, you just can't list it with me, or let's try this, right? So you can't, as long as you're honest with your client, there's nothing wrong with that. Christine?
But on the buyer's side, if you're representing the buyer and they can't afford to
So if the buyer can't afford it, let's use that as an example. True example just happened. So let's use the same example. $500,000 is the price. I'm going to meet with my buyer, and I'm going to be like, hey, Craig, I know you've been pre-qualified. I'm going to have my consult. That's a whole other story, but we're going to have our good consult, understanding expectations, knowing what he wants. He gets pre-qualified. So then I tell him, so based on everything that I've learned from the lender, you're going to need $32,000 to close. Okay? How much money do you have, Craig? Oh, I only have, let's say, 27. So you're a little bit short. You're about 5K short. Okay, so we know we're 5K short. Let me first explain to you, Craig, what that $32,000 involves. That $32,000 involves the attorney's fees. It involves inspection. It involves appraisals. It involves representation. It involves negotiation. It involves closing costs, down payment, admin fees. You see what I did? I just threw it in there. So I threw everything into the one bulk. And if he says, but I don't have the 32K. So it sounds to me, Craig, that you need somebody with experience and knowledge on negotiating to the best price possible for you. And when he says, well, yeah, that's why you need me in your corner. And then I'm going to go and do my best to negotiate that $5,000 in closing costs from the seller. Like I said, this was a true story. What ended up happening with this one, we didn't negotiate $5K, we negotiated way more. We also negotiated a lot of other things, price, repairs, etc. This Craig example ended up paying $21K. You think he was happy? But the expectation was that he had to have 32. So he had already thought, well, if we can't negotiate the 5K, I'll find a gift. Here's the thing. You have a Stanley Cup there. Why'd you buy a Stanley Cup?
I didn't. My sister bought it.
Why'd your sister buy it?
Because she had one for herself and she was like, here, I'm buying one.
And she saw value in it, right?
Sure. She's like, here, you'll drink more water. So I probably will.
Yeah, so there's a value because you're going to drink more water. And it looks cool, and everyone knows about the value of a Stanley. Why do you wear the clothes you wear? Why do you drive the car you drive? You have value in those items. So it's time to show value in yourselves. Why does this have anything to do with in the numbers? Because this year, everything's based on your value. If we don't have value, we're not going to promote ourselves. We're not going to survive in this business. My goal is that you guys all succeed, not survive, but actually succeed. The issues in the last few years have been people didn't even want to sign the buyer brokerage agreements. Guess what? It was the law. Do you guys break laws often? Because you are every day when you do that. It's no different than going and stealing out of a store. Well, a little bit different, but you're still breaking the law. So you have to understand, the law in Georgia has always been that not always, but for quite some time has been that you had to have a buyer brokerage agreement when? Before you ever enter into any type of real estate conversation. At first contact. But nobody was doing that, right? So what ends up happening is you end up creating a false expectation with your buyers. Because now with the settlement, we should be in a much better place because it's already been the law in Georgia. And yet, I hear the same cries and concerns as I do from the states that didn't have the buyer brokerage agreement laws. Only 18 did. We were one of the 18. All of them will now be required to have a buyer brokerage agreement prior to ever entering into any relationship. So the concern is, and I hear this all the time, I hear but my culture won't sign it, or my culture won't sign it. It's not this, and I say this at every class. Well, guess what? It's not human culture. It's not about your culture. That's all of us. That's humans. We all want to save money. So what you have to understand is that the culture that wants to save money, meaning all of us, have to understand the value, because people will pay more if they see the benefit. Not just for features, but benefits. Does anyone know what the difference is between features and benefits? If I said, what's a feature and what's a benefit?
A feature is just an option, whereas the benefit is a very positive thing.
Like Patty says, the feature is just an option, the benefit is what you receive. Thank you, exactly. So, an iPhone. Let's use an iPhone. What's a feature in an iPhone? Camera. So it has a dual camera or whatever. What's the benefit to it? Crisp pictures. Thank you, Michael. Yeah. So now let's turn it to real estate. What's a feature of you as a real estate agent?
Showing homes or opening doors.
Opening doors, says Patty. Thank you. What's a benefit?
See the property.
See the property? Okay. Or how about, what was that? Buying? Well, what I'd like to see, this is where I kind of want you guys to start thinking. Opening doors, we can all open the doors. We can all see the property.
Access to listings.
Access to the listing would be, I think that's actually, yes. I mean, access, it could also be your experienced eye, right? Your experienced eye of recognizing certain features in that property once you go in, because somebody that's never bought a house might not realize, oh, well, you know, that right there, you know, that floor is sliding a little bit, you know, that type of thing. So your experience in there would work, right? Your experienced eye. And this is just a quick, but I'd love for you to think of different methods that are features and then create the benefits. Because the problem is, everyone has the same features as a real estate agent, right? We can all have access to the MLS. Heck, the public has access to the MLS, right? So we can all write contracts, right? What else can we all do? We can all call an agent, talk to the agents, right? But so can they. So we have to start thinking outside the box. Why is the MLS a benefit to us? Well, we have the private remarks and the showing instructions that the public doesn't, right? That would be the access, like Craig said. Why is writing a contract a feature? What would be the benefit? The knowledge that you have. Yeah, the experience, the knowledge. Those are all things, knowing what that contract really says. So if we say all these things, they mean nothing. We have to create it in the benefits section in order to really understand it. So again, what's in the numbers? Again, if I go to a listing appointment, or if I'm representing you as a buyer, you're going to want to know that I know what I'm talking about, right? Because back in the day, until now, really, back in the day to the present, agents open the door. You want to buy it? All right, wonderful. You want to buy it? What do you want to pay? You know, you're not going to get it because there's too many multiple offers. You really need to offer more, right? That's how it's been. But they didn't care because they didn't have to pay you as so they thought, right? They were like, oh, the seller's paying your commission, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, so it just really doesn't matter. But the moment that we're now saying you're paying, you think they're going to care? You think they're going to want to know if you know what you're talking about? So with that, you've got to be understanding that you know your values. And if you don't, that's going to create a new issue. So how many of you guys know the days on the market today? You're very close. But that's the thing. You should be doing that every day. How many of you guys have really read the stats? You should be doing that every day. Because I am telling you, August 17th, well, really now, because the forms have already come out where you're telling the buyers that they have to pay you, right? So you've got to be telling them, it's not that you're paying me, it's that you're receiving a service. Because I guarantee you, they don't care about paying their doctor. They don't care about paying their attorney. You have to put yourself on that same platform. You have to be able to say, no, you're not going to wait till my knee surgery is done to pay me, right? Because you're not going to tell a doctor that, right? I'll decide what I pay you after I see if my knee works. No, they're going to charge it. So you're going to be offering that service. You owe me now because I am providing a professional service. And that is what you guys have to decide on your own, whether I'm valuable enough or not. Part of that value comes with understanding what the numbers are. So CMAs. What's a CMA? Who can tell me what a CMA is? How would you define a CMA?
It's an estimated value.
Estimated value? Says Craig.
I would say it's how your house measures up to other houses that have sold and are selling right now.
Patty says it's how your house measures up to other houses that have sold and are for sale now. Exactly. It's simply that. Problem is, can we make the CMA look however we want? We really can, right? And that's part of the problem that's been happening. So you have to be able to show the buyer that you have the worth and the value to not do something like that and understand how to create a CMA. we're gonna talk about the CMAs, we're gonna do one together in just a moment. But I'm curious, who can tell me if I was to be your buyer and I say, hey Sandra, I need a CMA on that house we saw. What's the purpose of me wanting a CMA? We've already said it's an estimate, it's how it measures up. What's the purpose of me getting a CMA?
So you don't overpay for it.
So I don't overpay. Yeah. So I don't overpay because unfortunately, too many agents again, hey Craig, you want to buy it for $500,000? It's only worth $450. Go ahead and pay $500, right? They haven't had the interest because it's been so much about themselves. So we've got to change that perspective. Now, during COVID, that was an anomaly. You couldn't, right? I felt horrible during COVID because I'm like, you have to figure out how much higher you're going to go, right? Then lower. But back in the 80s and 90s, we could go 20, 30% below, and we'd still get the house. So we have to know what the market is, to know how to negotiate and how to advise our buyers. So the first purpose, the primary purpose is obviously to go ahead and get that price setting, right? To make sure it's competitive, that it's realistic, and that presents the first issue. So say Craig does say, I want to pay $500,000. I want that house. I am absolutely in love with that house. Solomon's got the listing. You know, Sandra says, well, Craig, you know, it's worth $450. You sure you want to? I definitely want to pay it. What should be your next conversation? And who should it be with? Solomon's the listing agent. What should be that next conversation? Anyone? Y'all should know that. You got to give me the benefit of hiring you. What would you say?
I mean, if I'm representing the buyer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell the buyer that you are overpaying for the house if you want to pay.
Oh, but I want to buy it. 500. I don't care. I'm going to pay whatever it means, whatever it takes.
I would recommend that.
Okay. And what would be your next step, and why don't you recommend it?
You hired me to represent you. You hired me to protect you. And if you're not accepting what I'm saying, then why did you hire me?
I love that. Michael says, you hired me to represent you. If you're not listening to what I'm saying, or you're not accepting what I'm saying, why'd you hire me? That is great, but I guess what I'm looking for is what should be your next step besides telling him that. You should be calling Solomon, right? That's where I kind of want to give you guys some strategies. Craig is adamant he wants that house for $500,000. I'd be calling Solomon immediately. Hey, Solomon, have you had a conversation with your seller as to what will happen if that house doesn't appraise? That should be your very next conversation. Because Craig is thinking, yeah, I'm going to pay for it, I don't care. But he may not understand the facts on the appraisal part of it. So I'd be finding out first. Solomon says, oh yeah, she's not selling it for under $500. Then I'm going to have that conversation, that sit down, come to Jesus moment with Craig, and say, Craig, understand, you're getting financing. The house will probably only appraise at $450. Do you have the extra $50K? Right? We have to make sure he understands all those specifics. And I know some of these things are basic, and you're probably like, oh yeah, I wasn't thinking that. But you've got to make sure you're thinking that, because I see that all the time with agents where they're like, well, it didn't appraise, and they wanted to pay for it, so that's what we did. No, you've got to be in front of it, one step ahead. So now I'm going to call Solomon again, or when I call Solomon and he says, no, my seller's adamant. Okay, so does she realize that the houses aren't selling? Does she, what is the situation? I'm going to try to kind of give myself some insight as to whether Solomon's an experienced agent, whether he knows how to work with me. Because he might say, look, she's adamant, but I get it. When it doesn't appraise, we're going to have a conversation. My next question should be what, if he says that? What do y'all think?
We should adjust the sales price.
You should adjust the sales price.
If she
Craig.
will adjust the sales.
Oh, will she adjust the sales? Oh, no, she's adamant. She's adamant. She's going to stay at the 500. But I think if it doesn't appraise, then I think I'll be able to talk to her. I'm giving you guys real life situations purposely. So my next point at that moment would be, does she have equity in the house? What is her equity? Because she might be in a situation where she needs it to sell at 500 because she has no equity, right? So I want to know where that positioning is. Why is she moving? I'm going to try to get to that motivation, all that, of course. But if I find out, she just has zero equity and she doesn't have money and she needs to sell this house to move somewhere, I'm going to explain that to Craig, right? Craig, you don't have $50K. She doesn't have equity in the house. This is unrealistic. And at that point, that's when because I don't want to write a contract, not because I don't want to waste my time writing a contract, but he's going to be in a bad situation, right? So just be sure you're thinking through the eyes of a client, but think of all the outside and external steps that you can take in order to make sure. Because if that house doesn't appraise, we may have an issue. Now, I had a real life situation like that where the buyer was adamant he wanted to buy it. And it happened to be a friend, which is even harder, right? And this particular person was like, no, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it. And I said, it's not going to appraise. Understand this. He goes, I don't care. And I said, you don't have the extra $25,000. This was $25K. However, in thinking it through, I said, okay, you know what? You are going to be able to buy it because he was putting 40% down. So there was no appraisal contingency issues. But I'm like, do you really want to pay $25K more? So I had that conversation with him, and I said the same thing that Michael said. I said, Chris, I represent you, and you're not letting me represent you in your best interest. So I just want to make sure that it's well stated. Granted, that was right after COVID, right before COVID. So he actually has gained equity. He's okay now. But I had to do my part in telling him. So again, if it was a situation like that where Craig was paying cash, he did have the $50K, or he was putting way more down, I would just make sure to state, I want you to know my professional opinion. But that was just one quick example of what we have to be careful, because obviously we don't want to overprice a property. The other thing is if you're on the listing side of it, and we say, and I hear this all the time, the listing side we hear, well, I need that $25,000 room to negotiate. Y'all ever hear that? What's your answers to that? Anyone? What do y'all think? What do you say? I need that 25,000 buffer zone. What do y'all think? Boy, you guys are quiet today.
The listing agent says they need the 25.
No, the sellers.
The seller says they need the 25.
And you're the listing agent.
You need to price the property market is what I would tell them. It doesn't make any difference what you need. It's worth what the market will pay for it. That's what market value is.
Oh no, I get that, but I want the place to negotiate because I need to have that buffer to
You
negotiate.
can sit on it.
Thank you. That's where I was going with. Craig says it'll sit longer. That's where it's important to understand the statistics, right? Because if you show them the statistics, you're going to be able to say, hey, Nancy, if we price it higher, you may end up even at a lower price than what it is based on missing the market, right? Everybody, I don't know if you have or haven't, but there's a chart that shows how you miss the market, right? You have week 1 here. What are the most important weeks of the market? Anybody know? Which weeks are the most important weeks when you list a property?
First week.
First week?
What's the first two?
The first 2, says Patty. That is correct. So the first 2 weeks based on statistics. So the statistics show week 1, week 2, week 3, and on and on. And what it shows is like the market's right here. If you start up here, you literally miss the market. So you want to make sure that those first 2 weeks are the most important. What I tell buyers all the time is if you sellers, if you really are insisting in going ahead and having that extra room, we're going to do it for a week, maybe 2, maybe right up to that 2. But I don't want to miss that 2, so it's going to be like right before that end of the 2. And I've seen that really work. And I'll write into my listing agreement, okay, we're going to price it at $450, but week 2, we're going to lower it to $425. And I don't do $5,000 reductions, guys. I was just talking to Candy about this. Does a $5,000 reduction really do anything?
No.
A buyer's gonna buy what they wanna buy, right? However, how do people look in Trulia? Zillow, and Trulia, and all those, Trulia's gone, but how do people look on online apps? Anybody know? They go 2 to 225, they go 225 to 250, so on and so on. Or they might say up to 300, or they'll say up to 350, right?
So in $25,000 to $50,000 increments.
Right. So if I price my home at 305, I've missed all these buyers. So you want to always price your homes in that $25,000 increment, rather than the 324,999, right? We're not a thrift store, guys. We're not Walmart. We're not. So it's not about, are we on sale with that 99 cents or what, Get it to the point where if you put it right on that mark, you're gonna get all those buyers looking up to 300, and you're gonna get all those buyers looking up to 350. You see what I'm saying? Because there's gonna be people putting up to 350 or 300 to 350 if they don't want the fixer-uppers. They might go 3 to 350 or 3 to 400, and the ones that are looking under 300 will be looking up to 300. That way you get both markets. Make sense? We used to, when we first started, we listed everything like 300, 935. And it was more of a joke because back then we were looking in MLS books and things like that. And yeah, you gotta laugh out of that one. And we'd go through the MLS books and people would see the 935 and automatically know that it was our listing. So they would be like, oh, they're tough, they don't negotiate. They always knew that 935 was our negotiating room. That was it. So for years, we sold every house at whatever we did minus the 935. And it worked for a while until the internet became big and then it no longer worked. So, but it killed us to get rid of 935 because we were known as the 935 team. And so once we realized, we're missing buyers by doing that. That's when we started going to the round numbers. But you have to understand how people are looking. Just like you're looking at your client through their client's eyes, you want to put yourself in the other client's eyes and think through that route. And it all has to do with, if you're representing a buyer, how would the buyer be looking? And then think, okay, what's the motivation of the seller? So again, if you have a seller, if you have a buyer, let's do it this way. You're representing a buyer, and you go and, actually this happened to Steve yesterday, my husband. He went to show a property, and it just came on the market yesterday, and it's priced at 200. So you can imagine. Yeah. You think it's got multiple offers?
Yes.
Tons. And so the buyer he has, what? Oh, no, you're fine. The buyer is pre-approved up to 200, not a penny more. And he already missed out on quite a few homes, and it's a friend of his. So he really wants to help him. It'll be his first home. And he's going through a grant program and all sorts of stuff. So Steve feels real bad that he's missed out on all these homes. So what do you think? If this is you, it's your buyer, multiple offers. I mean, he couldn't even get an appointment because there were too many people on each appointment slot. So he literally went and, crashed the party of another realtor showing it in order to show it. And he called the agent and asked her first. But what would you do? What can you do to give yourself the ability to get that house for that buyer? What do y'all think? Think strategically. What are some things you can do?
My son and daughter-in-law, they wrote a personal letter.
Ooh, the love letter. All right, thank you for bringing that up. It's not Fair Housing Month yet, but that's a fair housing violation. Yeah. You send me a love letter, I'm gonna send it right back to you, explain if that's a fair housing violation. So don't ever send personal letters, because that could create fair housing issues. If you send me a letter, young couple, now we've broken familial status. So you can send, and that's a whole other class, but you can send letters stating, I love the architecture of your house. The architecture of your house is so open. The yard is great. I can't wait to put my boat and my trailer in the back. Things to do with the house, but nothing to do with the buyer. Just be aware of that. Otherwise, you're breaking your housing laws. But yeah, but that would be an idea, and many do use that. What would be another thing?
I would talk to the lender and see what's the soonest we can close and try to, position them to say, hey, we can close really quickly, we can get financing really quickly. I'm gonna have them call you.
Thank you. Patty says talk to the lender. Absolutely. And that is one of the steps Steve did. After he lost the other houses, he called and said, what can we do to position him better? So they've got him pre-approved, underwritten, so now he can close in 7 days. So now we have a 7-day closing. And because he's already underwritten, no appraisal needed and no financing. Think that helps him? What else?
No large earnest money then?
He doesn't have money. So Patty says put a large earnest money down, but he doesn't have money. He's going through a grant program, getting a gift for the down. But see, this is why I'm having you guys think this through. And this works whether it's whatever price point, you're gonna have to think these things through. What else? Number one thing, and this should be with anything, call the listing agent. Call the listing agent. And what should I ask the listing agent?
What's important to yourself?
What's important to your seller? Because now I can do a 7-day closing. That house is occupied. What should I do?
Ask them if they need post occupancy.
Ask if they need post occupancy, says Patty. Absolutely. So I'm telling you exactly how he wrote this offer. So he said 7-day closing time, no appraisal, no financing. Do they need a post occupancy? Well, they'd love it. Okay, we'll give you 23 days of post occupancy. Think that helps? What else? How about due diligence? Never do 0, by the way. No, please don't ever do 0. But we did do a short due diligence. So we did 5 days. And then what else can we do to position our buyer to be the winning buyer?
I would wait to see what the condition of the house is. Like if you went and the house was already in really good condition.
It's in good shape.
If it's in good condition, then I would say 5 days, and depending on the house, I would say we would ask for no repairs.
After the 5 days.
After.
But that means we have to go buy them first. So Patty says after the repairs, I would ask for no repairs. Which I'm not sure I agree with that yet, but we will know. That's more of once we go binding, if we go binding, right? Because I don't want them to go to a backup, which would be the reason. So you're right. You're absolutely right. That's one of the things I'm going to think through later, because I don't want them to lose it in the due diligence period because they go with the backup. So I'll have that conversation with the buyer and say, how important are these repairs? Because it was built in 75, but it is in good shape. But it looks like a 75 house. So, but this house is around the corner from where he lives currently. He's in the film industry. It's down the street from Trillis Studios for him. So it has a lot of features for him, right? So for him, probably no repair is going to be fine. He's a handy guy. He's got all the stagehands that are willing to help, and all the film guys that are willing to help him repair it. And his dad's a handyman or contractor. So yeah, so absolutely, that would be the next step. But other than that, to position him well, now we run into another issue. Nick says, ooh, it's going to be really tough coming up with that money, even the little bit I need to come up with, you know, the strike last year, et cetera, et cetera. So we called the lender, said, can we go up to 205? So we went up to 205 and asked for 5K in closing costs, right? So Nick's basically going into this house with no money if he goes by me. So he's gonna be very happy. We don't know if he's gone by me yet. This was last night that we did all this. But with that being said, the main thing is what's important to the seller. We called, we said, we know that the house is occupied. Do they have somewhere to go? I didn't say what everybody normally says, are there offers on the table? I don't care. We know what the top is for my buyer. Having other offers on the table means absolutely nothing. He can't go any higher. So that's not a question I'm gonna even bother to ask. I guarantee you there's other offers on the table. You know, there were probably 20 showings in the 2 hours we were there. So I don't care if there's other offers. And when you ask, are there other offers on the table? First, you're violating the code of ethics if you answer, if the agent answers. Secondly, it puts them on the defense. So what does that mean? You're gonna bring me a lower price point if I tell you there are? You know, it's like, why? So I'm not even gonna ask that question. Not in this case. And so then, at that point, I've got all that, we've got the 205, we're gonna close fast. No special steps. Make sure that's another one. No special steps. Special steps simply are gonna make the contract dirty, right? The other thing you can do, knowing your business and knowing everything you need to do, is making sure that it's a clean contract. No blanks left blank, no numbers left, you know, who's gonna be holding the earnest, that type of thing. So you make sure that everything is nice and clean in that offer. What about next? Now I'm gonna get all the offers signed, we're gonna send it to the agent. How should I send it to the agent? What do y'all think?
The signing platform they prefer.
The signing platform they prefer. Well, how would you like that offer sent to you? Now, here's a little trick. I always send it in Remind anyway, and then I copy it in the other way. Why do I do that? Anybody have any idea? If they tell me they want a PDF, I'm still going to send it in Remind, but I'll copy them on a PDF. Why do you think I do that?
So you have a written record.
So I have a written record. You can see, like Craig says, in Remind, you can go into info and activity. Did you guys know that? And look at whether anybody opened it. Especially in a multiple offer situation, if somebody says, well, I never got your offer. Really? You opened it at 2:30 this afternoon. So don't tell me you didn't get it. And then you see that that agent closed it themselves on both sides, right? So you want to be sure that you know what's going on. So yes, I'm going to ask what's your preferred platform. If you want it as a PDF, I'm going to go ahead and put that. I'm going to send it to Remind, then I'm going to go ahead and send it through the PDF. And do I put anything on the email when I send it to them? When I send the offer?
The highlights of the contract.
The highlights? You could, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I did it in this one only because and that's another thing I do. We like to call them and say, hey, I'm just going to let you know right now, this is what the offer is on the phone. Because if I had said the offer is 205 and 5K, closing in 7 days, and I told her all that, she was, you know, you usually can get more out of them, is my point. She was like, okay, I'm so excited to get your offer. But she could have said, oh, yeah, or she could have said, don't waste your time, or, you know, we have $1 million cash off. They usually provide you the info when you tell them that. So I went ahead and gave her the highlights over the phone, created a relationship, a rapport, told her we were going to do the post occupancy, explained, let us know if there's anything else you want worked on. And then additionally, when Steve sent the offer, he wrote, hey, Jacqueline, so excited I'm so looking forward to working with you with such a professional agent. It was great speaking with you, and thank you for helping my client's American dream come true.
I have a question.
Mhm.
In a case like this, when you have a buyer, right, they're using grants to get everything, they're not doing their own down payments. You said no special steps.
Mhm.
but we're moving into this new market where now as a buyer's agent, we're gonna have to be putting in the compensation that we expect.
Ooh, thank you for bringing that up.
So what do we do?
Actually, do we put compensation in special steps?
No.
Who's taking my class? No.
No.
F259. That's the compensation. So that was one of the exhibits. But yes, we run into an issue. That would have been an issue where I would have probably, and that's why I asked for the 5K originally, because I wasn't sure what her compensation was yet. We hadn't even looked at it. It wasn't a house he planned on looking at. They just happened to come on the market while he was showing another house. So he said, okay. So we sent the F259, not realizing she actually already had it in the documents. She had the F258 in the documents. The F528 is the pre-showing, which if you're a listing agent and you are offering anything, you should have that. You shouldn't put it in the attachments, FYI. That you shouldn't do, and she will not be able to do that after August 17th. But you can put it in the house, or you can email it to the person.
If they request the information. Now.
No, if I'm a listing agent and I'm offering it, I'm gonna send it right away.
Okay.
But like if I have a showing request, I'll probably follow up with an email and just send them the F258, which is the F258 is simply the pre-showing. The F259 is the exhibit that goes with the contract. So she didn't have the F259, she had the F258 because that's what we would put in the houses. But if you wanted to send over the exhibit, you could, the F259. So, but that's a great question. Now, if the buyer really, if the buyer's in this situation with the grants and has no money down, and she wasn't offering a compensation, we probably would have asked for a little bit more closing costs and up the price. That particular house will appraise. If it was a situation where the house wouldn't appraise, that would be a different story. That would be a situation that we'd have to have a conversation with the buyer. But, or I would have, said to the seller, we've got a great buyer, closing in 7 days, but I need some assistance. Are you able to, is your seller able to? And I would have sent the F259 asking it. However, in that one, more than likely, they wouldn't have chosen ours at that point because they probably have multiple offers. But yeah, great question. So yeah, just be aware of, the main thing is understanding who your clients are and understanding who the market is, what the market's doing. A lot of times you'll find people that understand the buyer, understand the seller, but they don't understand the market. So the market is a huge factor in whether you can move forward or not, right? So we've said pricing, obviously pricing, but pricing also has to be part of the appraisal process, as we spoke about with the Solomon incident there, that I said Solomon was a listing agent. So we want to always know that it's going to be able to appraise. So I'm gonna do comps, even in this scenario, I did a quick comp to see, is it gonna appraise at 205? Yeah, it's not gonna have a problem. So I can move forward. But if I had felt that it was an issue, then that would have been a conversation to have. So we wanna make sure that we're doing that. It also gives you the market insight, right? Because all of a sudden you're doing comps and you're seeing, well, you know what? There's 3 other homes here that are priced well, but all 3 of them have had 2 or 3 contracts. 2 or 3 contracts have fallen through. You want to look at those things. Often we look at the price, but we're not looking at the history of the homes. Look at the history of those homes and see if we see kind of a commonality, because it could be a situation where we've got, or we have many FHA buyers or many VA buyers. Just kind of get to know who the buyers and what the demographics of those buyers are as far as financing, in order to understand, okay, so if these are all FHA buyers, more than likely this agent is going to receive a lot of FHA offers. So having a conventional offer is going to be a plus. Or if they're getting a ton of VA buyers, so having a conventional would be a plus. You see what I'm saying? Understand what the market is telling you as well, so that you're able to really get that information. And besides the market insight, it gives you your client trust. Because in the situation, in the example that we used with Craig, Had I just said, okay, I'll write the offer at 500, it doesn't appraise, it appraises at 450, is he gonna trust me after that? No, like Michael said, he's gonna say, hey, Craig, you hired me to represent you and to negotiate and to understand and be your professional real estate agent. And you're not allowing me to do that, but I'll go ahead and write it because you are the client. So you want to be sure that you're making sure that you have that trust, that rapport. Because people want to do business with people they like, they trust, and they have rapport with. So that's a huge one. And then of course the competitive advantage. All those things equal having that competitive advantage. You want to be able to understand the market better than everybody around you. You know, if you're just somebody that says, okay, I'm just going to write an offer, and you don't know anything about the neighborhood, or if you don't know that there's a new building being built down the road or anything, that's not going to give you that competitive advantage. How many of you guys drive by a neighborhood before you ever list a property? I hope you all do. Yeah. You want to drive by that neighborhood, see where people shop, see where they go to school, see everything around it, and also make sure you know what all the homes on the market and what all the homes that have just sold are. Because all of a sudden you walk in, Nancy says, so what's that pink house selling for? Oh, geez.
Most of the time though, the seller will know.
Absolutely. Nancy says most of the time the seller will know. You're right. They've probably already gone in there with 10 other realtors. But you want to be able to know those things. Or they might see some construction happening. Do you know what that construction is? You know, what are they building over there? You know, you need to know those things. You need to read all the information that's happening in order to understand the market and understand what's going on. Now, what are the steps to conduct a CMA? What's the first step?
Sign on to your FMLS.
Well, thank you, Patty, for saying that. Sign on to your FMLS. But here's the thing: can you do a comp without an MLS, without an electronic MLS? We all used to. Absolutely, and you need to know that. Because if you're relying strictly on those platforms and those tools, then you don't have that knowledge. So that's what today's goal really is for you to have that knowledge to the point that you don't need a computer to do a CMA. You shouldn't need one, right, Nancy? Right, Michael, we've done them, Craig, you probably did them by hand many, many times, right? We all did them by hand. We would take the houses, remember how to do an average? You know, you actually had to do math. So it's one of those things that we have to understand the steps to conduct. Yeah, see the house. You know, do we have to see a house to do a CMA?
Not really.
Not really. It's not going to be as accurate as once we see it, right? But like Michael said, I agree with that. I don't think you need to. I mean, hey, I tell you guys to do the CMAs every day for marketing, right? You're not going to go and see every single house. So you want to do the CMAs by collecting the data, right? You're going to collect whatever data you do have. You're going to find out what recently sold, what's pending, what's active, right? All that simple stuff, right? But here's the thing. You need to understand how to choose similar properties. That's the biggest key. When I hear, that's just not comping. That's just not comping out. Or usually with appraisal fights. Because all of a sudden I'll be like, you know, I don't understand that appraisal. That was an awful appraiser. He just didn't know what he was doing. No, half the time it's the agent not understanding how the appraisal works. Because if you have house one here, we're going to say 1, 2, 3, go. That house has 1,500. Actually, I'm not going to go into all that yet, but we have 1, 2, 3, go in. These are all in, I'm going to say River Mist. That happens to be where I live. Or in the River Mist subdivision. Then you have 2, 3, 5, 4, and then you have 1, 2, 4. Okay, so you have 3 of these, and then you have one just about a mile away. That's 5, 6, 7 A Street. Okay, so these are all in River Mist, okay? These 3. This one sold at 600. This one sold at 500. this one sold at 400, this one sold at 550. And it's very comparable to those. Can I use this one?
I think
Okay. Do I have to use this one?
I would use them all.
Okay, but
I'd say, yeah, I would have to use the 400. I'm speaking for myself. When I'm doing the CMA, the most important element that I'm looking for is to get as many homes in the same subdivision as possible.
thank you, Michael. So yes, I would probably use these three. I would not use this one necessarily.
Mhm.
However, if this one was a ranch, and this one was 2-story, and this one was 2-story, and that one was 2-story, then I probably would not use that. So you want to have similar homes. Now, what happens if, let's reverse it, none of these are in River Mist. These are the ones that just sold. This one is in River Mist, but it sold at $350. And the house that I'm listing is in River Mist. What do I have to do?
I could try to find some more room.
But there's none.
But there's
Let's
none.
say
So
you'd have
I
to,
use it.
but you'd have to use this one.
Mhm.
You have to use at least one from the subdivision. That's an appraiser rule. So even though this one's so low, they would have to use at least one from the subdivision, even if it meant $350. They could then use these, but they would have to use this. So that's the part that a lot of people don't realize. They want to try to use everything outside of the subdivision, but it's not comparable. You know, they're just trying to bring that price up, and all of a sudden, but the appraiser just did, no, mine's nice, or mine's this. Yeah. So,
Wouldn't it depend on, sorry,
no, go ahead.
wouldn't it depend on how long ago it sold though?
Yeah, I'm assuming these all were within the last 6 months. Yeah, but thank you for that. Yes, when we're doing comps,
Most reasons, so.
step one is collecting the data, obviously, and what we're gonna do is last 6 months, right? Similar.
In a fast-moving market, can you even tighten it 6
Oh, yes.
months down to,
Mhm.
3?
These are usually what an appraiser is going to use. But when I say similar and within a mile, must use subdivision first. At least one in the subdivision. They won't always use all of them. If an appraiser is nice, they're gonna give you the option to not only use the one and go outside.
Mhm.
But again, remember, what's an appraiser? Appraisal, it's an opinion. So it depends on the appraiser what they're gonna do. But they have to, by law, use one from the subdivision. More than likely, they're gonna use all the ones from the subdivision. But if they're nice and kind and wanna help you up the price, they might go outside. Now, what happens, let's assume there was nothing in River Mist. There were tons of them outside of River Mist, but none in River Mist that sold in the last 6 months. What do you think an appraiser would do? This is the first step,
Stretch it out.
12 months.
Mhm.
They're gonna first go to 12 months and see if they can find them. Otherwise, then they'll go outside, and then they start going outside of it and things like that. What about schools? What's the most important school?
Elementary.
A lot of people think it's the high school, but it's the elementary. Yeah. Elementary is the first one. That's the first thing they use. We had a situation where a house didn't appraise, the seller was adamant, and she was an ex-realtor. Those are the best, right? Ex-realtor. And she was adamant that the appraiser did a wrong job. She lived in Grayson. Here's her street. Here's the street. This is Snellville. This house sold at 600. These over here we're selling at 500. She's like, they gotta use these. Same school district, different city. So I did talk to an appraiser about that situation, and they said they could possibly, depending on what schools they are, they may have used them. But because it wasn't like a school that had a lot of, and I don't want to use importance, but it wasn't as desirable as other schools, they didn't. So they had stated that if it was like, say, Brookwood or Head or something like that, they probably would have. But there's so many variables when it comes to an appraiser. But so obviously you guys are not appraisers, and so you don't have to worry to that degree. But you do have to understand how they work, because the other comment I get a lot, and I crack up when this happens, I had somebody call me, they just didn't comp it out right. Like, really? And she's like, yeah, no, they definitely didn't comp it out right. And I said, why? What did they do? And she's like, well, you see, there's house 1 that sold at 600, house 2 that sold at 625, house 3 that sold at 615. My house was listed at 615, and it should have sold. Okay? And because all these 3 sold. And at first glance, when she tells me that, I'm like, okay, you're right. They were all within the last 6 months. But then I went further. This one had like 5,000 square feet. This one had like 5,000 square feet. This one had like 4,900. And her house was, it was like, yeah, something like that. So anyway, my point being, I said, these houses selling at that actually bring your value down quite a bit. And they weren't getting it. And I do find that, having come from Florida, we use square foot on everything. We don't care, which is crazy to me. Oh yeah, do you use it in New Orleans? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so here it's really tough for me because, and I get it, we don't have cookie cutter houses here as much as we do in those other states, but you still, the appraisers use square foot. And that's the other disconnect between the agents and the appraisers, because the appraisers are using square feet. So they're like, but you see, there's 3 houses, they all sold at that. You can't just take what they sold. You have to look at the square footage, you have to look at the likeness, you have to look at the features, and they didn't. So I said, actually, when you do that, your house probably, whatever it was like 500. Yeah. Yeah, and I was like, you have to look at the entire picture.
And they use heated square feet.
So thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Yes.
Complaints about that, like, oh, but I have this extra space over here. But it's not heated, so just.
Yes, thank you for that. So what Patty said was they use heated square feet. The other issue is basements, right? So in that same example, we'll say, this one has a basement fully finished, completely redone, gorgeous. Why didn't they add more value? Underground. It's heated, but it's underground. So all the square footage above ground, so if you have first story, second story, let's see, 2 second story, first story basement. Okay, so you have that. And this is above ground, right? The basement's below ground. Beautiful basement. They might have said this one was at 100 square feet. This one was at 100 square feet. This is built prettier than the first and second floor. What do you think an appraiser's going to give it? They might give it up to 75. Might. But more than likely 50, like Craig said, or like Michael said. More than likely it's going to be half. And depending on the appraiser, because it was so well done, and so, they redid the ceilings, they did all that, they might give it up to 75. But never 100. I don't know of anyone that will give it 100. So be very cautious with basements. And then people say, but they should count the square foot. They do count the square footage. It's not that they're not counting the square footage, it's just that it's valued at a different price. So that's what they have to understand.
You see that in listings a lot now, that, because I have a finished basement in my house, and when I look at the tax record on mine, and I look at my neighbors and everything, they put in a room count. You know, I
Right.
see houses with 7 bedrooms selling in a neighborhood, and I'm thinking, that's not all about grade, or the first floor threshold. is the
Right.
standard. And then the tax record will show that finished basement as part of the total square footage, which I mean, I grew up the same thing with you. The basement, I don't give a damn what it's like.
Right.
It doesn't get the same value as
Yeah.
the rest of the house. And it's misleading in listings, is very
It is.
misleading.
It is, yeah.
It is. Well, thank you for that, Craig. Yeah, just like Craig said, it doesn't matter what the basement's like, it's not gonna be the same value. But in listings, people are saying, well, the seller said, and they're putting the square footage based on the seller. So first of all, don't even trust public records these days, because public records are awful too. But if they have an appraisal, look at their appraisal, get that square footage. If they don't, use whatever's there and just say as per public record. But the point being too, that when it comes to rooms though, thank you for mentioning that. What makes a room? A closet?
Window.
An egress, it can't be, because like I have a window in one room, but it doesn't open and close. It has to be an egress. So egress window. What else?
Heat and cool.
Doesn't have to.
I thought that was it. I should see.
10 by 10? Or 100, it's 100 square feet, it's not 10 by 10, but has to be a minimum of 100 square foot. There's one more thing. No, not
A
me.
door.
No, not
Your height?
yours. What was that?
Your height?
Height, actually height is throughout, you're correct, it has to have 7
7,
feet. Yeah, 7 feet, that's to be considered a room anywhere, correct. There's one more though, I wasn't even thinking of that one, thank you for bringing that one up, so. It has to have access to a bathroom, but you can't walk through another room to get it. So for instance, I have a room in my house, because we redid our attic. So you have my bedroom here, then you have a hallway, you have a bathroom here, you have another bedroom here, and then my attic was here, which we finished,
Oh, but you can't get to the bathroom.
but you have to go through this bedroom to go to the bathroom.
So it doesn't count.
It doesn't count as a room. It counts as extra space, but it's not a bedroom. So yeah, it does have to, and it does have a closet, but again, it has to have all those features in order to be a bedroom. So those are things that will help you and give you more value when you're talking to a seller, when they're telling you, well, I have 7 bedrooms. No, you don't. But you might, and the bedrooms in the basement will count as rooms. If they have all those features, they are bedrooms in the basement. If they have a bathroom down there, and they have the two, like my house, I have a basement with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and you don't have to, it's got everything. It's 2 bedrooms. So they count as 2 bedrooms, but they're not gonna be valued the same as the bedrooms upstairs. The square footage won't be valued the same. So that's where you have to know how things are done. The other thing on comps, and we're gonna do a comp right after break together without computers, that the other thing I hear a lot about is, but my house is so much nicer than the neighbor's house, right? My house is Taj Mahal. My house has this. My house has quartz granite and quartz countertops. My house has a fence yard. So we hear all those things, right? So we need to understand what is important, what's not. What about if it has quartz countertops? Does it always increase the value?
No.
No. Thank you, Mike. Why
I
not?
don't like quartz. It doesn't do anything for me in terms of a value. But a house has to have countertops.
So if he doesn't like quartz, it's not going to do anything for him personally as a value. But what if we think appraisal wise, where our
It's
opinions
just
don't
stone.
matter?
It's just stone. doesn't matter what stone it is, right? It's like,
It's an expectation at that price range that you have that finish.
you're getting there. Thank you, Craig. It's, so we have to look, Craig said it's an expectation at that price point. Well, it's really what's in the neighborhood. So if house 1, 2, 3 all have courts, we're not gonna add any value to that. In fact, we'll decrease value if it doesn't have courts. And this actually happened to us probably 20 years ago. No, we haven't been here 20 years, so 15 years ago or so. It was right when we got to Georgia. We weren't real familiar with basements. And we had a house with a basement, a finished basement. We're like, yes, it's gonna give extra square footage, it's gonna be great, and it's finished. We knew it wasn't gonna give the full value, but we thought it would give additional value. It actually decreased the value because there wasn't a single other house in the neighborhood that had a basement. So they considered it an obsolescence, which, you know, the buyer loved it, but it didn't give any additional value because it was considered weird in the neighborhood, basically, to have one. Granted, we fought with that appraiser left and right, but that's the thing. If it's different, it could affect it. Same with, like, in Florida. If we have a pool, does it increase the value in Florida? It does. It does. A little bit.
I think everybody has a pool.
Right. Everyone has a pool. It's like almost weird that you don't in Florida. But what about here? Does it increase the value? Actually, again, based on an appraiser that I spoke with, it could or it could decrease it. Because pools aren't as desirable in Georgia as they are in Florida.
More maintenance.
Mm-hmm. So you've got to winterize here still, where you don't in Florida. So those are things where here it could or it could decrease. Again, that all is based on what is in the neighborhood. So you want to look at it. Or here, I get a lot of people saying it's going to increase value because I have an above ground pool. No. I built a beautiful deck around the above ground. Actually, the deck will help with the condition of the appraisal. But it's not going to increase hugely. It might give it a little bit extra, but not much. Now let's pretend house 1, 2, and 3 actually had Formica countertops. And you have granite. Will it then increase the value? Is it going to increase it, the $20,000 that I spent to get it? And yet that's what they think, right? So we have to, again, have that realistic expectation. What do you think it increases it? Anybody know? There's no magic number, but there's a relative, about 3,000 to 5,000. It could be anywhere between, depending on the neighborhood, again, 3 to 5.
That's a lot of granite, 20,000.
Well, it depends too how much granite is in there. I mean, how big the kitchen is.
Right. I mean, but they're going to look at the size, and then the countertop, kind of like Michael said, countertops are a necessity.
Yeah.
So they don't really add, like, if you have everything granite, like I have granite backsplashes, and I have granite we took, I think we needed 6 sheets of granite. We have a pretty big kitchen. Yeah, 6 slabs. It was a lot of granite. But it's not going to increase the value. We knew that. We knew that when we did it. We just were like, we're going to retire here. We don't care. By then it'll be an obsolescence anyway. But it's one of those things that it has a lot of granite, but the main thing is it needs something. So whether it's granite, quartz. Now for mica, yeah, that's considered a lower level. Kind of like a regular roof versus an architectural, a compound versus an architectural. It's going to give you a little bit more value. Again, not much. Now, the other thing I hear when we're doing comps is, oh, here's the thing. I just put a brand new roof, so shouldn't that increase my value? Why not?
You won't even pass the inspection if you have a broken roof.
Michael says you gotta have a roof. Patty says you're not even gonna pass the inspection if you have a broken roof. It's maintenance. It's considered maintenance. So no, great, you're not gonna decrease your value. It's going to be at the upper end versus the lower end.
It becomes more of a good selling point.
Yes, exactly. So when my key words to sellers all the time when they tell me, but it has a new roof, or I put new gutter system, or whatever, I always tell them, did you enjoy it? Or if it's a kitchen, I'll say, did you enjoy it? Or if it's a roof, I'll say, are you glad you don't have any leaks? You know, it was something you had to do. Would you have done it if you did not sell? Yes, you would still can fix your roof, right? So it's something that has to happen. So let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. Be back at 11. Yeah, you're gonna sit there. You don't take a break. But yeah, so just be back at 11:45, right? Yeah.
Can I get the Wi-Fi, please?
The what? Oh, I'm so sorry. It's yeah, let me give it to you. Max one guest, and thanks for coming, all lowercase. Sí. Sí, ¿qué pasa? Sí, ¿qué pasa? Ah, yo no sabía eso. Eso es clave. Ah, porque yo tengo que ver las cosas. No, vamos a ver, yo no soy la verdad. No importa, porque ella te va a dar un cheque. Va a ser acá.
I wonder.
No, eso está bien, porque para mí Mónica me va a gritar que lo haga, porque yo no puedo hacer eso. Sí, porque ella quiere meterlo conmigo. No, yo no. Ya,
Yo le dije que no es mi culpa, ¿verdad? Pero no importa, quizás.
Sí, pero...
Tengo que hacer otras cosas.
Did Steve say where he was going? Yeah. These are hard to. No, that's fine, I drew it down.
No, I'm actually living out for it. How about yourself? Okay, I've heard of that. So you like pickleball?
Yeah.
They play it a lot at the gym I go to.
Oh, like that?
They like that.
Yeah.
I keep saying I'm gonna go in there, but I haven't made it over there yet. Yeah. They play a little bit in my subdivision too, but I just haven't made it over there yet.
Yeah.
At the gym every day.
It seems, it looks silly.
It's kind of taking over at the gym. Yeah.
I know some people that play over there, that, Chattahoochee Grove.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It has.
Right there, where is that, like, right there?
Well, yeah, one off of that, right at North Point. North Point, yeah, so North Point.
Oh, okay, but there's no.
Yeah, what was for that. And then there's another, like, system.
Yeah, that's it. And then there's,
In the office. In the office. No, everyone's saying.
It's another one for. But there's one actually. This one, not far from here at all.
Pero no importa.
What's up, Jim?
Solamente dale, le van a mandar el email. Claro, sobre eso no me Well, since everybody's a little bit early, we'll go ahead and get started and let you out a few minutes early. How about that? Oh, my. Oh, no, no problem. Go ahead. Put my jacket back on. It's cold again.
School, but information is hot.
Yeah.
So is maximum one that has several offices, or is this where you?
No, this one in Alpharetta. We have two.
Oh, okay.
Well, this franchise does. There's other franchises. I go both.
Oh, you,
And then yesterday I taught in Gainesville, but it's a different franchise, but it's still maximum one.
oh, I see. Do you have a calendar, or how do we?
Max one training.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you should get emails too. Yeah, because you'll see the ones from all of Maximum One too. I don't teach right now. I'm only teaching Alpharetta, Duluth, and Gainesville. But the Gainesville one's in Spanish.
Oh, yeah, I have seen some of those.
Es dura. Ay, gracias. Sí, al fin dije, no quiero como se está poniendo muy gris, me lo aclaré. Gracias. Estaba bien nerviosa por hacerlo. Pero no estoy acostumbrada porque nunca lo he tenido tan claro.
No sé dónde.
Es una mujer vietnamesa y te da un masaje de la cabeza que es magnífico. Gracias. Sí, vete ahí, pero toma tiempo. Digamos, yo planeo todo el día con ella porque te da un masaje en la cabeza y eso es riquísimo. Simple, fácil, solamente por matar. Sure.
What's your opinion on, right now, I'm hearing a lot of possibly include retainer foods.
Yes, actually, we're going to talk about that right now.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm totally for it.
And I did have one question, you had mentioned earlier the F-258.
Yeah.
I never could. You said you had it, so when do you send it once they?
The F-258 is the 4. Right. 259 is what it's on.
Well, then I mean, like, at what point do you show it, well, I guess it could just be easy to leave it in the.
I send, well, if you're listening, then you're gonna leave it in the house.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, I think that's just easiest, they would just leave it.
Yeah. If you're a buyer's agent, I may ask them, call them, listen, and see if you happen to have a
Instead of asking directly, oh, it's for seller offering confirmation.
Yeah, that's how I would probably approach it. Yeah. You can, I'm gonna give you guys paper, so we're gonna do it old school way.
Should we keep following that?
Does everyone have a
Somebody
pen?
else
Do I need
follow.
to have pens?
Over the last year, I've been following hard.
Oh.
Does anyone not have a pen? Just give it a second. But, yeah, I mean, my feeling on, the F258, did you take the mid-year changes already?
Tomorrow.
Oh, I'm on my class or somebody else?
It's the virtual one.
Yeah, that's mine.
Oh, no. Do you have it in person or is it only virtual?
I've had several in person, but,
The one tomorrow is only virtual.
virtual, yeah. Honestly, I like the virtual one for that one because you can be on your computer kind of looking at stuff too. If you have, well, that's if you have two screens actually. But, a lot of people still open it up during the virtual. All right, guys, well, let's see. I did say 45, so let me give Nancy a minute then. And Sandra. Well, Sandra, I'm not gonna wait on, but. She comes. Oh, she's actually here before.
I was telling him I was taking a Zoom class online and our personal internet at home went out
Oh,
at 2 hours and 30 minutes. And then I tried to get back on Zoom and they, they closed it down.
Yeah. I let people come back in because I've had that happen. I'll just put you in the waiting room and then put you back in, but, because I know the first time I closed it out and I'm like, oh no, and there was like, and then mine's gone out in the past. So I always have it open, yeah. I always have it open on my phone too, that
That's what
way.
I was just gonna say, just do it on your phone too, just in case.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, depends on the type of account you have, the Zoom account, but if you go out on one, you can go on your phone.
Okay.
Because some Zooms don't let you go.
That's right, I just have it on standby, just in case it goes out, then I jump in on my phone. Because then your cellular data is always more reliable.
Yeah, and then I don't like, I've been allowing people to be on 2 devices, but it's tricky for me because when I run my reports, I have to see, okay, because I'm not gonna give you twice the time if you were, sometimes people try to sneak in, because we look at the time from the reports and they're like, okay, I'll stay on half the class with 2 devices and show like I'm on, yeah. So I have to like look at the report, so I don't really like 2 devices.
Yeah.
All right, where's Nancy? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up. So, in order to conduct the CMA, obviously we're gonna look at the current listed properties, we're gonna look at the sold listed properties, sold properties, and we're going to look at expires. Do you guys all include expires on your list, on your CMAs?
I'll be honest, I'll look at them, but I never include it.
Yeah. So I definitely encourage you to, at the very least, look at them. So Michael, if you're saying you're looking at them, definitely. The reason being, if I have somebody that's listing a house at 500 and I see that there's 3 expires at 500, I can use that to explain to them, these are the houses that didn't sell. So we want to go from fantasy land to reality. So that's where I would definitely use the expireds as well. Obviously, they're not going to count towards the actual value because they don't matter, neither do pendings for that matter. But we want to make sure. Who knows what CIA and CBS mean? So this is how I teach in pre-licensing, and it's funny because how much do we really remember from pre-license, right? My goal when I teach is that you do remember it because unfortunately too many instructors teach to pass the test. I want to give you relevant information that's going to work. But CIA is comparable, inferior, add. And CBS, comparable, better, subtract.
Never remember.
Did they teach it to you that way?
Yeah.
Okay, not too many teach it that way. I don't know where, I didn't learn it that way, but yeah, so comparable, inferior, add, comparable, better, subtract. Unfortunately, we forget this, even if you did learn it in pre-license, because we're so used to using the computers. right? So that's where it kind of becomes a crutch. And that's why when you go and get change back and you give them more than they should and tell them just give me $1 back, and they're like, no, but wait, it was 10. No, I gave you 5.10 because no, they can't figure it out. So we've all been there, right? So it's like, really? So you want to be able to make sure that we don't forget the basics. I think our society, this is my personal opinion, we've gotten so used to our technology that we freak out. The other day I went to get my cracked screen fixed, and my husband's screen was cracked too, so we're like, okay, we have to take and gave both our phones, and we were like, uh-oh.
Withdraw. Immediate withdrawal.
Yeah, we're like, wait a minute, you don't have your phone, I don't have my phone. You know, so we were both like shaking. I'm like, this isn't good.
Not healthy.
Yeah, we're like, this is really not good. So I literally picked up the phone at AT&T and said, can I borrow your phone a second? I just want to call my kids because if they happen to Facebook me or anything and they can't reach me, they're going to freak out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me just call them and tell them, we're off the grid for a few hours, okay? And they laughed and they're like, okay, it's okay, Mom. But we literally were shaking. We were like, this is like a drug withdrawal. You know, we had to detox from our phones. Sad. And we're heading to my hometown in Guatemala next month, so I'm like, I better get used to it because I'm not going to pay what we have to pay. But actually, I will have my phone there. Don't worry.
You can use WhatsApp.
Yeah, I do use my WhatsApp already, yeah, so that's what I'll be doing. But actually, I'll have local service because I'm still technically working on there, so don't worry. But with that, so inferior add, better subtract. Obviously, that's going to be something, oops, hang on, I thought I had my case here. Let me see if I have it. Did I not? Yeah, okay. So with that, we want to make sure that we understand, and I put a slide on border, understand that. So this is what we're going to do right here. Take a sheet and pass it back. Yeah, about a couple of them there. Take a sheet and pass it back. So this is a subject property. Called you to list this property. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home, 1,500 square feet in Abbey neighborhood. Sounds better than AB neighborhood. So Abbey neighborhood. All right, so that's your subject. So this kind of looks like an appraisal, right? That's kind of like what an appraisal form looks like. And this is actually an old one, so it's not really a great one, but just know that that's, so where it says your property, that's going to be your subject property. So fill in everything you possibly can. Obviously, I didn't give you a whole lot, so it shouldn't take too long. Street address, just put 1, 2, 3.
And this is the subject property?
Mm-hmm. This is the subject property. Just put 1, 2, 3 anywhere. And then, we don't know the sales price, right? And then, so basically 3-2, single family, 1,500 square feet. That's all we really need to know. And here's your comps. And as you see, I gave you the 5,000 for adjustments. If it was a real CMA or a real appraisal, you would definitely have different numbers. And, you know, appraisers would use different numbers for different things, but we're just looking at better or worse, or similar. Yeah, back in the day, we didn't have everything on the computers to do it for us, so we had to do it like this.
And these all the comes with 3 2s.
Yeah, they're all 3-2. But yeah, I made it real simple. So you're just gonna adjust for the things that you know. So obviously, are we going to subtract or add or do nothing for comp 1? We're gonna do anything with comp 1?
It's a little more square footage,
So
so.
square footage.
But it's only 50, so that would be a matter of opinion. I'd say probably leave it there. I don't know that I would adjust it for that, for 50 square feet. Has everything else very similar. I'd say that's a really good comp, right? What about comp 2? Are we gonna do anything there?
So a little bit smaller, but slightly better condition.
So we would adjust what? What would we do to that 310?
Plus it.
Plus it. Exactly. So we would plus the 15. I mean, that's 5.
Where are you adding that on here?
So, thank you. So basically, when you go down to the adjustments, you see the square foot of the improvement and all that. So this would actually knock itself out, right? Because if we're going to adjust, if we were to adjust for the 100 extra square feet and then adjust again for the slightly better, it would balance itself out, wouldn't it? So again, this is more just to kind of get you used to thinking
This is
about it.
nothing again.
Right. And then comp 3 sold for $295, 1,600 square foot.
So it's a larger house at a lower price. So it's kind of almost like that example we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Where it can kind of drag the price down a little bit.
Exactly. So that's where that one is bigger though. And so what would we adjust? Plus or minus?
Minus.
So again, this isn't really, like I gave you the sheet more than anything for you guys and if you want to make extras or anything, for you to kind of play with it and understand what the computer's doing. It's not so much that we get to the bottom of it, but for you to understand, because buyers will say, or sellers will say, well, I don't get it, because those other houses were bigger, or those other houses were smaller, or whatever. You need to understand what goes behind that pricing in order for you to have the ability to explain it to your buyers or sellers. So really the biggest takeaway on this would be the CIA and the CBS. Understand the CIA and the CBS. You understand that, you're in good shape. Because what I see happening all the time is you'll use the RPR, let me ask you this, what do you guys use? What platform do you use for your comps? Cloud CMA? Okay, Cloud CMA, Remind, RPR. So we have different methods, but how many times have you added the adjustments or subtracted? So it's truly not a good comp. So that's where I think it's really funny, because unless you've taken the training, which I would assume they're going to teach, I've never taken it, I have to be honest, but if you've taken the training with Cloud CMA or with RPR, I would assume they're going to teach you to use the adjustment.
So I just took it actually because I wanted to
Right.
see, like, maybe I
Did they
wanted to
teach you
use
about
that.
that?
They show you where to add the
But not
adjustments.
how.
It's the little section that has, like, it says details and
Right.
adjustments, and so you can physically put in the adjustments, but still, it's kind of like, where do I pull these arbitrary numbers?
Yeah.
And if you didn't understand the CIA CBS, you'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, so he shows you a little bit.
They're more
about how
tech
that-
people.
It's more technical. It's more like, how do you add it if you're gonna add value?
Right.
How do you subtract it? What buttons
Right.
to press?
That's what I thought, because I know that they're more tech people teaching and not really real estate people.
Right. They just don't give you the specific
Right.
adjustment numbers, so even then it's still kind of.
Right, and that's where you can kind of look at, see, okay, so like, for example, if I was doing this and I really wanted to get a real adjustment, you can always call an appraiser and say, what numbers should I use? And they'll usually give you kind of an indicative number. They'll be like, don't swear by these numbers, but here's an idea. If you want to get more complex, you can look at all the other comps that have sold and say, okay, this one had granite, it looks like it's a $5,000 difference, and kind of do your own homework with that sheet and figure out what exact number that was probably added. Because all of a sudden, if you had, for instance, the first one, comp 1 sold for $300, $1,500, square feet, similar condition and features, and you've done your comps and it's all looking like it's right at around 300, but then you go back in that condition and features, it actually had courts where nobody else had, and you see that it actually sold at 305, then we know we're gonna add 5,000, we're gonna use 5,000 as the number. Make sense? So it's just a little bit more work, but it's understanding, because even with all the technology, and that was my point for saying it, so thank you for bringing that up, Patty, about the class, is that they are tech people teaching you. They're platforms. It's all about the technology. It's not about the actual usage of it. So you have to have that knowledge behind it. Otherwise, again, going back to the original part that we talked about with features and benefits, you're not offering a benefit, you're just offering a feature. I'm giving you a pretty report.
And they did, I will say they did touch a little bit on making sure you choose the right comp, so they did, you
Do a
know, the
little bit
instructor
of it.
did go on that, like, don't choose just random stuff, make sure you're sticking within the neighborhood and within a certain
Right.
range. So they did kind of touch on that, but
Not
it was
full.
definitely more techy.
Right, well, like Patty says, they did touch on it, but it was more techy than it was real estate, and that's usually what happens. And that's actually what one of the effective CMA practices that I was gonna advise you on, is to be sure you're being objective. Because a lot of times, I'll have agents that are doing what they can, where we talked about at the beginning, where we can make the CMAs look however we want, because they want the listing so bad, they're gonna make that listing look better than it really is. They're only gonna hurt yourself later on when you have signs sitting there 6 months later, right? So you wanna be sure you're being objective and making sure you're using those right documents, those right places. And we're gonna go into where those right places will be. Because for instance, what happens nowadays is we have so many off-market properties, right, that are not in the MLS. So if you go and do a comp in Cloud CMA or anywhere, you might not even find it. So it's one of those things that you actually have to do a little bit more research and go into the tax records and things like that to really figure out what has sold. And I hate that. That's one of the reasons I have such a pet peeve on wholesaling and off-market properties. Which they just made it illegal in South Carolina and Pennsylvania to do a wholesale without a license, without a real estate license.
It
Georgia's still
doesn't
not
make
there.
sense that it was ever even allowed. to
Well,
do it.
actually here, Georgia, it says that you're supposed to have a license, but nobody enforces that. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna research that a little more because that's one of my pet peeves.
What, to do an assignment contract?
And wholesaling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the law
Just selling
says you
a
must
house.
have a real estate license to perform any real estate activity. That's a real estate activity. However, they get off the auspice of, it's just, what's it called? A vested right, can't think of it. But just the assignment right or whatever, but there's a name for it, I just can't think of it. Equitable right, but I hate it. I despise it. But yeah,
That's nuts, though. That's just business. Because I have wholesalers that contact me, because that's son-in-law that deals, and we're always looking for property.
right.
And the vast majority of stuff that comes to you is assignment of a contract, or it's a simultaneous close. Wholesaler buys as soon as you close, and
And how do you feel
I
about
don't,
it?
I don't think they need to be licensed.
Really?
Yeah, it's an investment. You know, that's what wholesale's all about. It's
Gotcha.
just business. I mean,
No, I mean, I get that.
it's like hard money loans. The assumption is if you were borrowing an entity's name, you know what you're doing. That's the assumption.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you do,
Right.
but it waives out all those disclosures on residential loans completely. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
federal
I
regulation.
mean, maybe
on
if
that.
people really did it properly, the problem is that there's so much stuff going on that's not done properly. And it's not business people doing it, and they're creating, I've seen some horrible situations happen where they're telling you they're wholesaling it, but they're basically taking advantage of people. So that's where it gets really bad.
They shouldn't be playing in the market.
Well, I agree, but how do you regulate that without having a license?
If they were licensed.
Yeah. If they were licensed, they'd be regulated, but they're not regulated. So
I don't think they need to be regulated.
if they were doing it properly, I
If you're
think
buying
you
from a
might be.
wholesaler, you gotta know what you're doing. That's buyer beware.
No, I'm talking about the wholesalers themselves. There's too many crooked wholesalers.
Well, you know whether you're dealing with a crook or not.
You
Sometimes
know. You know.
Yeah, well, that's,
That's the
if you
problem.
don't, that's not something, that's like swimming with sharks.
Yeah.
you know, it's dangerous to get in the water.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
And you need to
Yeah, but that's why there needs to be regulations.
Yeah, that's where, oh yeah, that's a whole other discussion, but I mean, I agree with you, there's people that ruin it for everybody else, cause it could be great in your situation where, you know what you're doing, you know what you're looking for, but then there's so many others, and I've seen people get taken advantage of by these wholesalers, and that's where I have an issue with it. But it was illegal now, as of now, it's illegal in South Carolina to do it without a license. It's always been in Texas. It's illegal in Pennsylvania as of last week. And technically, it's supposed to be illegal in Georgia, but nobody's regulated it. That's the part. So, but anyway, understanding the market trends, that's going to help you. We're going to go into this in a minute, but the video CMA, I teach a lot to do a CMA a day. So those of you that have taken my classes, I teach, do a CMA a day. You do a quick CMA, I'll show you how to do a quick CMA. And when you do a quick CMA, you send it off to people and then you follow up, especially FSBOs, especially people in your neighborhood, people in your sphere. You send one CMA a day. And there's studies that show that the statistics have increased your business by 38% by the end of the year if you do one CMA a day. Of course, it's not just sending the CMA and hoping that it hits somewhere. It's sending it 3 days later, following up. Hey, did you receive my CMA? Then there's the video CMA. Video CMA is the exact same thing, except you're going to video yourself and say, hey, Michael, just wanted to let you know what your house, you've got $10,000 in equity, or well, obviously you have more than that, but you have $100,000 in equity as of today. Just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. If you'd like to see the reports, give me a call. And those of them that are doing video CMAs have received even more than 38% as of now. Some of them are kind of crazy. I know this one young agent I want to say she's in Virginia, but she goes on Instagram all the time and she's like, hello, you have 50,000 in equity. You know, and that's kind of crazy and just like really insane. I know, right? I'm with you. I know, I saw that. I'm like, I feel so bad. But I know it's not my style, but that would be how she does it. And she has gotten crazy busy from it. So I think, that's her personality. Obviously for me, I think I would get a headache looking at it too. But that's the point. You have to decide what works for your clientele. You know your target audience. So be aware of that. But a video CMA is a very, very effective way. Obviously, when you're talking on a video, it's important that you understand the regional variations. Because obviously, if you know the homes aren't going to be the same in one area as another, and we're going to go into where you can find those regional variations. It's hugely important to identify what causes those. We talk about the pools, obviously oceans, obviously bays, rivers. Michael and Steve were just talking earlier today about, my husband sells in Miami, Florida a lot, and Michael sells in New Orleans. Insurance rates have killed the ability of people to buy because insurance in those areas with water are ridiculous right now. That's why Steve keeps getting listings, but people can't even afford to buy because they can afford the house, like Michael was saying, but they can't afford the insurance. Because what's insurance now? It's insane. I forget. It's ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah.
Somebody could, I'll just give you an example. They could have a $400,000 home and an insurance policy might be $14,000 a year.
Yeah, that's about Miami. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Miami house Steve just sold, I think she was paying $22,000. It's a $500,000 house. Yeah. So it's ridiculous. It's insane. Granted, also everything in Miami is ridiculously expensive, but yeah, it's crazy. But using the data is huge. Obviously, understand where all the different regional real estate sections are. You can always go online and look up the markets, but it'll kind of give you an idea of what regions we talk about. And you'll see where people are emerging from all the time. It's really, really huge to understand if they're buying in Atlanta, how are you going to, oops, sorry, I want to go back here. I wanted to show you something. You want to be able to show them that, you want to be able to show them the information that, why it's more in certain areas than others, such as oceans, pools, Tybee Island compared to Atlanta, Savannah compared to Atlanta, things like that. And then, obviously, we have to look at radon, environmental hazards, things like that. You know, how many of you guys are aware that Georgia is one of the highest radon areas in the country? Yeah. So be aware that you understand that data, understand what is important in your area. You know, ADUs, historical. Everybody know what an ADU is? Accessory dwelling unit. It could be a garage. It could be a closed-in garage. It could be a tiny house. It could be pretty much anything. But identify your region and understand that. Understand that the market reports. That's where we're going to spend the rest of the time in, is the market reports and understanding how that all works. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But understanding where you can find the most accurate data is huge. Most of you are realtors, so you have access to the NAR website that has some great statistics. So be aware of those great statistics and know where to find them and how to get them. And make it a point to know those statistics and make it a point to make that part of your schedule every week, so that you can literally know how to go and find that data. Because data is something one can't deny, right? We always say, you know, DNA doesn't lie, right? Neither does data. You know, we just found out, my husband's been finding out forever, you know, his grandfather's from Italy. He came from Italy. We have all the paperwork. He came from Italy. He did his DNA test, 0% Italian.
Oh, no.
So he's like, what? So we're like, no, he barely spoke English. I mean, he's Italian. And he's like, 0% Italian. So we're like, okay, there's something funny on this. It showed all his grandmother's side, but nothing on his grandfather's side. So he finally started talking to his cousins, and said, do you mind getting your mom, which is my husband's dad's sister, to take the DNA? We want to see if there's a disconnect there. And she goes, she's not well, she won't do it. My siblings won't let me, but I'll take it. So she took it. She called us 2 days ago, and she goes, I got my results back. And we're like, okay, have you clicked, connect to your relatives? And she goes, no, not yet, but I have 0% Italian. And so then he's like, okay, connect. Second cousins. They're supposed to be first cousins. So that means his mom, her mom, and his dad had to be cousins. So we're like, whoa. Yeah. So we're like, okay, something's not right, So we're like,
stuff you don't want to know.
yeah, and that's where he's like, DNA doesn't lie. So he's freaking out, and then of course you go in there, his last name's Bettolotti, right? He goes in there and it tells you all the common names based on your DNA. Jones, White, Brown, Jackson. He's like, how do I go from Bettolotti to that? Smith was number one. Because how do I go from Bettolotti to Smith? It's hilarious. But yeah, so we're cracking up about it. So just like DNA doesn't lie, data doesn't lie. So you can't go wrong if you know data. If you're going against another agent, you're going to be better off as long as you're informed. Knowledge is power. We hear that all the time, and yet we don't see that power being done, right? You guys need to go to the gym with that power. So this is how an appraisal is done. We know that. But the main reason I showed you that is to understand the process so you can explain it to your clients. And this was AI generated, so you see a lot of errors, by the way.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, this is driving me crazy.
It's driving me nuts too. But that's the one thing about AI. I haven't figured out spell check. But it's an AI generated photo. You tell the AI what you want, and it creates a photo, but it's still learning how to spell. So with that though, that's, to me, that's a little too mumble jumbled. Anyway, you guys know the process, but the main thing is understanding the property comparison. They go and inspect it, they value it, and then there's different approaches, right? There's an income approach, a sales comparison approach, and a cost approach. What would we use in a residential? What kind of approach?
Sales.
Sales approach, right. So like Craig said, sales approach would be for residential. What about a new construction?
Cost.
Cost approach, Michael, absolutely. And then what would we use, the income approach for? Investment properties, yeah, simple as that. So it's something that you need to understand and explain, especially where it gets complex, and I know Craig's in commercial stuff, but when it gets complex is when you have a residential / commercial property, right? Then it gets real complex. But understanding the data, understanding the process is definitely very, very helpful, and understands the ability to know when each approach is done. Understand what emerging markets are. What are the top emerging markets in the country? Even though we don't sell necessarily in those areas, you want to know, because again, knowledge is power. Do you guys know what number 1 is right now?
This is a stretch, but I want to say, I'm saying this something I saw recently. Is it somewhere in Utah?
No, but actually that is emerging, but not, it's not one of the top ones. Rochester, New York.
Wow.
Rochester, New York.
It's so cool, man.
Yeah, ironically, it's Rochester, New York. So that's actually kind of funny, but yeah. Then you've got your economic factors, and obviously you have the GDP and government policies impacting what else, interest rates, etc. Right? We know that the economy is directly related to everything out there, right? Everybody, I have a lot of buyers right now that are saying, I don't want to buy till when?
November.
What?
So after the election.
Yeah, mainly.
They're almost simultaneous.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Till rates go down, till the election, want to see what's happening. You know, I know I'll be hiding in my house that weekend. It's like, oh, I'm afraid what will happen after. But no. But yeah, you've got to be very, very cautious. So just understand that the economy affects real estate. Now, when we say the rate dropped or the rate went up, does it matter what kind of interest rate went up or down? Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, how does it matter? Who can explain?
Well,
Are they all related?
they're related.
I know, I'm sure Craig knows.
Go for it.
Go for it, Craig, they said.
Yeah, well, you get everybody's waiting on the Fed to do something, and the 10-year treasury is what we benchmark mortgages off. And it has a traditional spread, and the spread's wider now than it has been traditionally. It runs 175, 200 basis points, and it's above that now. Rates, in my mind, should actually be lower than they are right now. But
I agree.
you know, the whole thing is if enough people think something's so,
It
it
happens.
becomes so.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference whether it flies in the face of logic. I mean, if enough
Thank
people think the economy's going in the tank and they quit spending, the economy will go in the tank. I mean,
Because they
it's-
quit spending.
Because they quit spending, exactly. They're thinking everybody else spend, I'll quit, I'll have some money. But it's, you know, it's just a feeling. I mean, we wouldn't have a market. Half the people think, or a percentage of people think it's going in the tank, and a percentage of people think there's nothing like opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, will never be better than it is now. And
Right.
that makes markets. People bet that it is or it isn't.
Perception.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Just like Craig said, you know, it's really what we all think that creates a reality. Perception is reality. And you have a situation, you turn one channel on, the economy is great. Turn another channel, the economy sucks. You know, it's like, you just don't know. And so you have to be aware of what is being said. No different than with the NAR settlement. You know, you turn on the TV, sellers no longer have to pay compensation. No, that is not what it says. But, you know, it's all in the perception. Absolutely. So we have to be very, very cautious. There are different websites that you can use, obviously. I'm sure Craig could list all of them. But you have different, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, you have, then of course you have more real estate sites. You want to know what your unemployment rates are, believe it or not. You want to know what the census is, the U.S. Census. You want to know those different areas in order to really understand what is going on. Because if you don't know them, then you could be in a situation that, that could cause some issues. You have obviously FRED, which is the feds. You have GPT data, the World Bank usage. One of our clients just was working for the World Bank, so she was just like Craig, spitting off numbers, and she was telling me all this stuff about the economy. And it's definitely very important, but when the GDP grows, it generally indicates a healthy market, right? Am I correct in that, Craig?
Yeah.
And
And markets are low too, because
I was just gonna say, isn't it also very regional, because
It
what's
is.
happening here,
Yeah,
doesn't
this
mean
is
it's
just
happening in
national.
Nebraska.
absolutely.
especially if you have a major employer in the area, a major industry, and that's on the ropes, so to speak, and the rest of the economy is growing. Let's face it, real estate's slow right now, and the economy looks just hunky-dory, but
Right.
we didn't sell real estate for the last year or something, and stuff.
A little bit slower, yeah.
Tough.
So the real estate market, is it expected to stabilize, go up, or go down? What do y'all think? What's the perception out there in 2024?
I think I just read yesterday, well, it was specific to interest rates, saying that they were going to stay stable. And I think, again, this is just what I'm reading, if not
Yeah.
a little lower, and as far as home prices, slight increase,
You're correct.
like 1%.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Right now, it's saying that it's expected to stabilize in 2024 with home prices remaining flat or a slight decline though of around 0.2%. And then of course, they're expecting the rates to decrease slightly. Many don't understand why they're not. That's several of us saying the same thing there. So that's what they're saying. They do believe that that's happening. The economy, the competitive edge though, or let me go back to the economy a second. One of the things that just happened in Georgia, for example, is we were able to add the new law in the Landlord Tenant Act about the top of the security deposits. Y'all heard about that? We cannot collect more than 2 months of security deposit, which I think that should have happened years ago, because it's in most states out there anyway. But again, it's because of the fact that they're seeing such an increase in the rates of rentals. In Florida, in Miami-Dade County, where I'm from, they have been creating a lot of stabilization on the rates. They're gonna put caps on how much, that I'm not in so much agreement, because I don't think anybody should be having the right to cap you. But they are gonna be putting caps on rental increases. So you won't be able to increase your rent for more than 5% a
Like
year.
a rent control.
Or rent control. Where there, I'm having a little bit of an issue. I don't like having that over my head, but that's where they're going with it. What I want to show you, let me get into my screen here so I can show you the actual market reports. So sometimes when you have 3 screens, it's a little difficult. Let me get here. Come on. So where you said cloud, who else uses anything different for their comps?
What about RPL?
RPR, you use RPR?
Sometimes.
Okay. So I do too, but I'm gonna go first to FMLS to show you. Make sure that screen is on. So in FMLS, how many of you guys are using your market trends?
Not enough.
Not enough?
I used it.
Okay. So, is it there? Yeah. So with FMLS, I want to make sure you guys understand and know where everything is, because it's real key. To me, we used to pay for these reports back in the day. Now they're right there. So you want to be able to make sure you're getting to them. You have 2 different areas in FMLS. The statistical report, I love this. This is great for videos. If you look right here, this first one, the FMLS statistics overview. If you go right in here, this one right there, you've got a couple different scripts. How many of you guys have used this?
I have
So this comes out every month. And this gives you the ability to know exactly what's going on in the market. Do you think that would give you a little bit of a plus over other agents?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you were to say, you know, I'm going to go list your property, hey, Michael, you know, there's 5245 closings this last month, and in June 2024, it is a decrease of about 13% over 2023.
What market?
This is the Metro Atlanta. This is Metro Atlanta.
The whole, like 42 counties?
Yes. Yeah, this is all of Metro Atlanta. So obviously we're gonna go more regional and more geocentric, but for right now, if I was gonna just have a general conversation with somebody about Metro Atlanta, this is, and it's actually more than Metro Atlanta because it's all of FMLS. This is everything, all of the FMLS areas. So that would be the 5245 closings. You know, there were 1,093 closings for single family, et cetera, et cetera. That would give you great insight to have just a regular elevator speech conversation, right? You're just at a party. Oh, yeah, you know, we had like 5,200 closings in June. Wow, you're really good at numbers, right? You want to know that information. Or, you know, year to date, we've had 29,854 closings. You're going to ramble off these numbers. It's going to give you power. So I make it a point to look at this at the beginning of each month, understand what this is, and you've got videos there. These are great video scripts. You probably have 8 different scripts in there. So that would be great, you know, hey, here's my market update for the day, and you go through something. You could talk about residential one day, residential detached, another attached another day, etc. About active inventory. You know, here it gives you the active inventory, total active inventory right now, June 2024. But look at that, we have 26 total active, where last year we had 18,000. So we're showing the increase in our listings. You know, that's going to give you the power to understand these numbers. So this is one that I really encourage you to be aware of. The other one is if you want to go to the, you know, they have 1 million of them here, but you have the ability of the residential versus the detached. You know, I often tell people, you know, if they're asking me about a townhouse, well, you know, let's look at that. Let's look at the values. Okay, well, we had, you know, 35 average days on the market. You know, you can go into whatever area of it you want. But you can look at that and, again, educate yourself, get yourself to the degree of understanding what the market is doing. And then, of course, you have pretty much everything. Listings sold, days on the market, and here you have 20 more scripts. This is where you have all your market updates for the month. And you have the ability to send, you know, I like to screenshot these. It doesn't, well, now they do let you print them. They used to not let you print them. But you can screenshot them too and put them on your social media. You know, do whatever you'd like with them. And that would give you the ability to understand all of that. Additionally, let's go back to these reports. You have the sales summaries, where you can then go county by county. So say I want to go to, I don't know, let's go to Cobb County. And you can even go as geocentric as a zip code if you wanted to, or the city. Let's go to city. Let's go to Marietta. And I can put more information, like a subdivision if I wanted to, or I could just leave it blank. Oh, it does make it to the close date. Sorry, I forgot about that. So I'm going to put for the last 6 months, or I'll just do from 1/1/2024 to today. Oh, there we go. So there you go. Again, this is all power that you guys have at your fingertips that can give you the ability to understand. And of course, if we go into an actual subdivision, it's even better. So I'm going to do like, I'll do Gwinnett. I'll do mine just to show you. Gwinnett. You can do high school. Let's do high school. Let's do Brookwood. And then same thing, let's look at the report there. Much shorter. tells you the average sales price. Another great tool that you can use, and again, these are tools that people don't even realize they have in their pocket. So if you start using these tools, it's going to give you the ability to let the buyers and sellers know that you have the knowledge and you are using the tools that you're given. They don't know they're free, right? It's like, hey, I've got this great tool, I'm gonna send you this chart. So that's all great ways of getting that information out there. So you have pretty much everything you want here. Pending listings, inventory graph, days on market. You said 40 something, Patty. Let's go look. We're gonna go to the detached. So now you can go in here and this one gets a little more complicated. 2024. This isn't my favorite one for days on the market, by the way. I'll show you which one I like to use. But yeah, you're right on target right there between 36, around 40 something. So then the other one that I like to use a lot, let's go back to FMLS, is this one down here, market stats. Markets, yeah. Yeah, this one I like for days on the market and everything. Yeah, this one's much better for everything else. The other one I like for scripts and for, market, just overall market. This one I like for the more geocentric, because I can go right in here, add the area. I can either do the entire FMLS, or I can do a city, or a zip code, whatever. So I'm just gonna do, let's do Cobb again. Let's see, actually do commerce, I don't know why. But we'll do commerce, and then you can go in here and pretty much hit any one of these buttons, and it'll tell you everything. Days on market, days, and then the good thing with this one, it does. So it tells you the entire FMLS area versus commerce, right? So right there, you're able to see everything, and you can go back 3 years, or you can go back 1 year, 5 years, etc. So you think this is gonna help you become a little bit more knowledgeable and a little bit better at understanding what's out there? You can even go by square footage, bedrooms. You guys have this at the fingertips. We used to, when I was at a different company, we used to pay, each agent that wanted these stats, we used to pay like, I think $100 a month. So it was a while ago, but it was a lot, because it was somebody physically doing the stats back in the day. So, and now, you've got all this at your fingertips. Additionally, in GAMLS,
Back in the day when I was selling, it helped me because when the market was crashing and people were like, why do I need to list? Like, nobody's buying, why do I need to list? And then I pulled those up and had it.
yeah, absolutely. And then in GMLS, you can go to tools and then go to market activity. Same idea. I almost like this one better for social media. So, because this is the one I screenshot all the time. But you can go in here, it doesn't let you print, but you have apps you can create to print them, or you can just screenshot it. But this one's the median list and sold, median days, coming soon, it kind of gives you, again, a whole aspect of it, and you can put the zip code or whatever you want there. So this one's not as intense as the others, but it's a great snapshot of the market. So that's another one. Again, you can go and look, let's see what's happening. You have median days on the market, then you have the median price, original to sold. It gives you a great indication of understanding what's happening in the market. And then, of course, my bookmarks. Oops, that's not what I wanted. And go to it. Nina?
Where is that 30147?
That's Silver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go to the website. I know where it is. So it's, and then you can go to the NAR website if you're a realtor. It's got, oh yeah, I went to the settlement because I just caught on that. But you could actually go, when you go to the NAR website, you can go to the research and statistics, and you have all these different areas right here. How many of you guys have used these reports? You have? Good. So you have the state metro, the commercial, everything. So make sure you understand that that's available to you. That's definitely something that you can go in there and use. And really it has so much information even besides all that. The other area, oh, and see here you can go, oh, let me go back to the state. Here you can go and look at the state level data, the metropolitan data, etc. So it gives you the different areas per state, per area, the commercial, the home buyers. I mean, you've got so many tools these days that are crazy. Going back to FMLS, I want to show you what I recommend doing the quick CMA for the daily one. So for instance, if I was going to go and just do a daily one, what I like to do, and you guys can tell me how you do it, this is how I normally do it, is I'll go to residential, and if I know it's in a certain subdivision, I'm just gonna go straight to the subdivision. That's the simplest. If it's not, then that's a different story, but let's do it with the subdivision right now. I'm gonna choose active. I'm actually gonna choose all except withdrawn, hold. And so that gives me everything automatically that is detached last 6 months in River Mist. Now I know there's another River Mist, so I am gonna put the city. So now we have 10 matches. So I'm gonna go look at them. And I'm gonna see, okay, wow, right now we have 4, which is actually huge for River Mist because we never have any houses on the market. So it's kind of huge that we have 4 right now. And so I would just go ahead and select all and go right to quick CMA right here. It's super simple, but it gives me a nice little report that I can send out to everybody that I want to send it out to. That would be a quick one CMA a day type of report. And they can then see for themselves what's out there, right? So that gives you the quick CMA.
That's nice.
Yeah.
To do the whole subdivision.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, if you don't have a subdivision, let's say I want to do, because it's not in a subdivision, I might go by elementary or middle or high. Let's do high. So I'm going to go to Brookwood. And, oh, I took off the.
So that would be nice to do a little mail out of it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. You can certainly do a mail out. I personally like more targeted, because my feeling and my background on direct mailing is unless you're going to do it for a year, commit to a year, you're not going to see the full results. But if
you
you're,
go door to door.
well, that's a different story. Yeah, but that's not technically direct mailing. So if you're going to do that, that always works.
That's doing.
Yeah, that's door. But if you're going to do direct mailing, you want to give yourself a commitment of minimum of 6 months. I like to say a year. But when it comes to 1 CMA a day, you can still send it out to everybody in your neighborhood and then go and knock on their door.
Yeah.
So, 1 by 1 CMA a day. And what I like to do with the 1 CMA though is go to your sphere. I don't care if they bought yesterday. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them, hey, here's a report. Just want to let you know what your equity is. Who else would benefit from a report like this? And you're going to just impress them again. They'll recommend you to someone else. So that's what that one is. Of course, if I wasn't going to do it in a subdivision, I'd go here. Then I would probably, because there's 106, I'd probably be going a little bit more into like a mile of, a mile from, and I would put an address. I have no idea what address this is. And it's not in Millburn, so I have, so let's see. But you get the idea. I would maybe put, well, I'll do it just like if it were, actually, what's your address? 30. Yeah, I know it now by heart, so. So there you go. So I'm gonna put this address. It's not Brookwood though, so I'm gonna take out Brookwood. Let's see what it gives me. So it gives me 69. So I might go into the years built. Technically, normally I do 10 years lower and 10 years
It says county Wilburn instead of.
Oh. Thank you. So I would do 10 years earlier and 10 years more. So if the house was built in 1990, I'd go from 1980 to 2000. Just to kind of get an idea if I have to narrow it down some more. Which, on this one, I could go, if I know it's in a subdivision area, I might go half a mile now. So we can go there now. It gave me the 12 matches. Let's take a look. And there we see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 active, well, 1 under contract, and then all these others sold. So then I'd be able to look at that and say, okay, what should that house sell for, right? So I would be able to take a look. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are doing this, but you always want to take whatever listing you're looking at before you go show it to somebody, or if you're getting a listing appointment with somebody, go to your history. Always go to the history and find out what's going on. That's why when I hear people say, I'm going to take it off the market and just put it back on the market, that's an old school thing that we used to do when we had hot sheets. It doesn't work now because now you can go into the history and you just see it. So I always laugh when people tell me that. I'm like, why are you going to do that? It's going to be seen regardless. Back in the day when we literally had hot sheets that came out, that was different. And what I mean by hot sheets, we used to have a daily report of every new listing, and there weren't 20,000 like now, so it was different. So, but that's where I would go ahead and go, because this tells me, okay, well, you know, it was coming soon. Then they changed the percentage. Then it went to active, coming soon to active. Then it went from active to under contract. Then obviously the deal fell through, went back on the market. So now I'm speaking to my buyer. I'm going to say, well, obviously something happened and went back on the market. I'm going to call that listing agent, find out why it went under contract and fell through, right? So this gives you the idea of understanding why is it that that's happening. The other one that you want to always be aware of is your GAR website. Let me go to GAR. Well, GAR and Georgia, actually. Let me go to the Georgia one. You can always go right here to the GAR forms, just so, or GAR or GREC, just so you know, and try to find any information you can get there. Knowledge is power, guys. Understand all of these things. Like here's the broker CE that's been talked about forever. So you can go and look at the broker rules, things like that. How is it going to affect the market? Everything out there is going to affect the market. Everybody know what's happening here, by the way? With the broker CE rule change, just that we're going to be required to take more.
Specific courses.
Yeah, and it's going to be specific courses, and we're going to be required to take more.
It's already like that in Louisiana.
Yeah, and it should be. I agree with it. I'm totally for it. But yeah, you want to know what is going on. And then with the Georgia Association of Realtors, that's where you're going to get some state of the market. Oh, why did it do that? That's crazy. No, change it back. No.
Get to go back.
It didn't let me. That was kind of weird. All right, let me go. Let's go Georgia. Thought I saved it, but association. Okay. So when you go here and you go to the Georgia Association of Realtors, then here you also have information, and I had it bookmarked. I don't know why I'm not seeing it, so let me just go here to find. No, that's not what I want. Ethics, ethics education. Here, let me find it. I know I have it. GAR statistics. But they have a really good one. And then when all else fails, I'll show you in a moment. Here we go. No, let's go to generalize. Here we go. Fast facts. Fast stats. We can open. Maybe not. Okay, I promise you it's there. But when all else fails, oops. ChatGPT. right? You can always go in here and say, what are the top real estate emerging markets? See, this gave me a totally different, didn't give me Rochester there, which is interesting.
I guess it depends on who you ask.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you wanna see what's out there, because you know, just like I tell you, oh, the one thing I failed to mention, which I should not have failed, is when you're doing your comp, make sure you're also going to Zillow. Not because I trust Zillow, but because you know your buyers are looking at Zillow, and you know your sellers are looking at Zillow. So you need to know what they're seeing. And who can tell me how to explain to them when their Zillow, their estimate says 500 and you're coming up with 425? Besides Zillow sucks. You know that's what we all want to say. What she said, right? No, what Patty said is Zillow sucks. But no, the idea, you need to understand, there used to be a link that they've removed, which is really interesting. I mean, I'm sure it's there, but I can't find it anymore, that talked about how the estimate worked. They go out 5 miles instead of 1 mile. And they don't take into consideration type of home, architecture, they don't take into consideration age of home, nothing. It's just whatever houses, whether they were a townhouse or a single family that sold within those 5 miles, they group them all together and that's how they get their price. So, and it's just an algorithm. So that's why sometimes it's hit or miss, right? Sometimes it comes out real well, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's important to understand what they say. So you know ahead of time what your buyer is going to look at or your seller is going to look at. Additionally, when you're in FMLS and for instance, and you go to public records, make sure that if you are looking, let me make sure it's in Georgia. Okay, so when you're looking at a property, I also do this even during my comp. I don't know how many of you guys do this, but go to the public records and go to comparables here too. Because this is going to give us the ones that weren't listed. So it's real important to do it. So you want to go in here, go and check out what they say.
It's just hard sometimes to trust the square footage.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But you're going to be able to at least see if there's anything there, and then you have your market trends here as well. So these are all areas that can help you put a little bit more in your tool belt. Obviously there's way more, but it's this right here. I like to go to the property and go right to the market trends because it's going to be geocentric to that property. And you can immediately see for that area. Okay, so I looked up my house. I know that it's 77 in monthly average, 5 years average, 102, et cetera, 26 days, average sale 140 per square foot. So now we've got a very good snapshot that we can use. So I always go there and click on that market trends as well. And that'll give us an idea of what is there. So like, let's do.
But if that was 5-year average, would you want to use that?
Not necessarily, no, no. No, more than anything, it's just a snapshot. Just because they're going to be getting that information from Zillow too. So you just want to be aware of. No, it's not going to be my Bible. It's not going to be what I'm going to go by. But the 26 days is pretty accurate for that area. Some of the other facts are pretty accurate. Just kind of a snapshot, just a quick snapshot. And then I would go, for instance, let's see, 3010. So let's do yours, Candy. So if I go to this one, and I go to the market trends. So again, this is days on the market. This is actually all pretty good. The 5-year average, I don't like, but Patty, everything else is monthly. So that one actually gives you the June 2024, the days on the market, you know, etc. Monthly average. There you go. And so what this is doing as far as the 5 years go, Patty, is just simply saying in the last 5 years, the days on the market were 67 days as an average. Today it's 46. So it's not that it was taking all the 5
Got it,
years.
got it, okay.
So it's just comparing it to the 5 years.
Got it.
So 5 years average prior to today was 315, today it's 353.
This month.
And that again, that one's not accurate. So I'm not gonna take that and go, oh wait, this is your house, I'm thinking it's my house. Like, that's not accurate, so, but, I hope that's not accurate, let's put it that way. But that one actually, everything else is pretty on target. But again, this number is taking all the houses, we're not taking any adjustments. So that might be a 1-story with a 2-story, with a fixer-upper, with a regular one. So I don't really use this number as much, but I do use it for the others. Yeah, so days on the market, sales price to list, those are all pretty accurate. So with that, it gives you the ability to understand those tools, and you can go further into each one again. And I have used these on social media before for neighborhoods, because people really like to see that. But you can go in here and, actual prior month, actual current month.
Did you say how far out it goes, this report?
So,
Mileage?
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if it tells us. Let's see. Because again, I don't base my comps per se on it. It's more of a snapshot. It does not say, but I venture to say it's still, this one's about a mile. I'm pretty sure this one's a mile. Because I know when we go into any of the reports, it's gonna automatically auto-go to a mile. So I'm assuming it is.
It's not just going based off of the entire zip code?
No, that I know it's not, because I've done it before with the zip code to compare, and it doesn't. Because that's what I thought too, but that's a good question. I'm actually gonna call Realist and find out, so I know. But again, this just gives you a couple more tools to provide to the seller or buyer. I like to do all this in front of them. I like to show them. That way they know I'm not manipulating the comps. I mean, I'm already gonna have something prepared for them, but I'm gonna show them on here, so this is how I came up with it. And that way they firsthand see it, builds the trust, builds the rapport. So I always bring my laptop in there, show it to them, and they're like, oh, okay. And they know that it's not you just manipulating those numbers. So any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Sure.
I've had cases where we, in an old subdivision, maybe there's a burned down house, so we bought built a new house, new construction on it. Sometimes you get the appraisers trying to do company, and it's so difficult because they don't use the cost approach most times. They don't look at neighborhood, like you said, 6 months
It's
out.
new construction or not?
Yes, yeah, new construction.
Okay.
So how do you really compare that?
Well, I mean,
Because
that
you
would
have
be more of an
neighborhood
appraisal.
houses maybe about 350. But this new construction is even going to cost you more than 350 to build. And then, so how do you really price
Yeah.
that?
Well, that's a great question, Solomon. If an appraiser's not using cost approach on a new construction, that just doesn't make sense. You're in building, Craig. I mean, what do you think, or your son is? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't use the cost approach.
That, you saw that when it hit the skids in 08 and 09.
Yeah,
You could buy a house for less than it would cost
to
to
build.
build it.
Yeah.
Typically, that is not the case,
No.
because you wouldn't build anything if you could buy
Right.
already built cheaply.
Right.
From an appraiser standpoint, he just has to deal with the market. Those are the kind of things that just make things stall sometimes. It has to sort itself out, because that's not rational. Just like
No.
somebody willing to pay 50 more for a house, and you say it's not worth that. And in the next question, Jeff, how are you gonna live there? Oh, I'm gonna transfer in 2 years. You think, well, you've lost your mind.
Right.
For sure. You're gonna buy a big check when you leave there.
Yeah.
It's the people who do. My son-in-law just bought one. I can't believe he bought a lot, listed at $265, and I wrote the contract at $260, and I sent it. I said, let's just make a run. Let's clip him. 5,000. Why do I spend money? He called me back immediately. He said, no, $266. I want this loss. I want to be sure I got it. I said, you're bidding against yourself. Stop.
Yeah.
But I changed it because I work for him, right?
Right.
I'm his representative, and he tells me what to do, and all I do is what I'm told. But I couldn't believe that, I couldn't convince him. I said, well, let's just make a run at it. It's not like people standing in line to buy this thing. And I've seen a lot of people do.
Yeah, so
Strange
unfortunately, I don't think we have a good answer for you, other than the fact that I would actually have a conversation with the appraiser.
Yeah, if you got distressed property in the area, you want to be sure that they're aware that that's a distressed sale, that it's not arm's length. I have a piece of property I own in it's land, and I was going to do your assessment, contest your assessment.
Right.
And I looked in the county record, and I thought, they'll tell you what they use. They may have 70 land sales,
Right.
and they're like 3 of them are arm's length. The rest of them are distressed or family or something like that. And you see, you got 3 sales. 3 sales don't make a market. But you're already, I mean, you might as well be talking to the door handler when you're talking to the county.
Oh,
That's,
yeah. Your taxes will go up if you contest it.
3 years, 20% a year for 3 years now.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, I told the lady at the county, I said, if you can find somebody that'll give me that an acre for it, I said, they can have it tomorrow.
Yeah, no joke.
But it's hard to find information, and they adjust.
Yeah,
County,
unfortunately.
zip code wide, kind of, or neighborhood wide, and ignore the streets paved or unpaved, and
Yeah.
utilities. Just all that doesn't factor in when the county's.
Yeah,
doing.
unfortunately, I don't see you winning on that one, unfortunately. But I would definitely have a conversation with the appraiser and say, why are you not using the cost approach? Because that would be the only question I'd have, unless it's like already other phases. Are there other phases that are already built?
It's an old subdivision,
Oh, it's an old subdivision.
yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
20 years
new
old
construction.
subdivision. But the new construction, because one of the houses got bumped, so we bought a lot, and then we built a new house.
But it's one new
Yeah,
construction.
just one.
Oh, that gets more difficult.
Yeah, that's what my
That-
son-in-law does. He does
Yeah.
in town, and that lot he just bought, he'll be the most expensive thing in the block by a couple $100,000, and I keep looking and thinking, you've lost your mind.
Yeah, see, that's a different
But
story.
they sell.
Yeah.
That's-
They do. But that's the thing, you have to understand, with the old adage of you don't ever wanna have the best house in the neighborhood, you wanna have the smallest house in the neighborhood. You don't wanna ever have the best house in the neighborhood. That's kind of gone out the door, like you said,
If
but,
you get in town, I mean,
yeah,
it's-
depends on the area.
yeah,
The
it's a
location,
lot.
location. And if you don't have, but unfortunately, in your situation, if it's one custom home in an old neighborhood, they have to use that old neighborhood too. I thought it was a whole new subdivision. No, if it's one, that's where that's why I tell people it doesn't make sense to build unless that's your business.
You'll see some weird stuff on these appraisals too.
Oh, yeah.
I got calls for 6 months after the last house he sold me. I said, we just want to confirm square footage in here. And I asked the lender on that property, I said, can you send me a copy of the appraisal? Because I told my son-in-law, I went and put tape on the outside. He kept saying it's not that. He didn't want me to put the square footage in the listing. I said, why not? I said, they're going to get an appraisal. And he said, no, just leave it. And he said, a lot of people just leave it.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I started looking, I saw a lot of new construction with no square footage in it.
That's
I
crazy.
thought, okay, he reads as much probably as I do when it comes to what's in the listing. And it's amazing. I mean, people
That's great.
it's like, I want this house kind of thing. I
Right.
mean, it is I'm stunned every time I see it, because
There you
people
go.
spend, I wouldn't even think about paying what some of them pay.
No, for sure. Well, you guys, I did put out the evaluations out there. Feel free to fill them out, and then you can just leave them on your desk, and I'll grab them. As far as I wanted to let you know, next the 31st, we're doing a role play and lunch. We're gonna have our scripts. The few days prior to that, the 27th through the 29th, we have Tom Ferry's live stream. We actually paid for the live stream. We're gonna have it here. We have a catered lunch, like a true catered lunch. That's gonna be for 3 days. It's 6 hours of seed each day. You don't have to come to all 3. If you wanna come to one of the 3, you're more than welcome to. It's 6 hours of seed, no cost. And then on the 31st, we're gonna be role playing. He gives us a ton of scripts to use, and we'll have role playing. So if you guys, and feel free to let people know, Max One Training is where it is. And, you can always go and find that at Max One Training, and it'll give you the ability to, and I think I have it on, the Max One Training is where you'll be able to find all the classes. Other than that, I hope you got a takeaway from today, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that you come back for another class. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. That was sweet. I usually have my hubby do it all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I need that.
Don't worry, I'll grab my. Oh, thank you. Yes, it was.
So we didn't talk about the retainer fee.
Oh gosh, the retainer fee, real quick, guys. Anybody, and I had that on my slide. Retainer fee, with everything going on right now, retainer fees are great to use, in my opinion. But you just have to have the value, understanding that what you're gonna do is contact your buyer when you're doing your consult, let them know what your expectations are of them, what they should have expectations of you, and just conduct it just like a professional business. Here's my retainer fee, it's $5,000. You will receive it as a credit at closing. If we don't close, that's a non-refundable fee. Now, remember, the $5,000 has to go to your broker, not to you. That's the one key part that we're having some issues with people understanding. But you can charge whatever you want. Some people are writing retainer fees, and I'll charge you if it's more than 10 houses. Some people, you can do whatever you want, but as far as whether it's a good idea, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea as long as you can sell your value with it. But that's what you have to do. But thanks for reminding me.
A long time ago, I wanna say back in the mid-90s,
Uh-huh.
I worked with a company in Pennsylvania, and, our principal was,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have the
I
retainer
never did.
forms. Yeah, I've done it once or twice.
have you?
Yeah, but, I would have no problem doing it now, if I was selling right now, and I've been trying to encourage Steve.
Yeah, you know.
It depends who you're
and
working
that's when you find out who's serious.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I was thinking the other day about strategy or a process where you would offer to a client a package of, let's say, 5 homes at,
A lot
I'm
of
gonna
people are
charge
doing
you
that.
$300 a house for me to show you. $1,500 retainer fee, and I'll show you up to 5 homes.
Mhm.
If you buy one of those 5 homes, then that $1,500 is given back to you at
Right.
closing,
Right.
and I still get my commission. But that protects me for the time that I spend
Yeah.
out with you. A lot of times, and maybe nothing ever happens, but all of the costs are incurred by me.
Yeah.
The time, the gas, everything, my research, my intelligence, the whole package.
Absolutely.
And,
That's something people don't understand, how my background's lending mostly.
Right.
They have no idea how much work realtors put in to be able to take them out. If they find the stuff.
But the
they want,
problem
that's when
is
they
not
take it.
everyone does. That's the issue.
They're just clueless.
Yeah.
I've told everybody I ever worked with, and I'm working with an agent, I said, get yourself an agent. I said, it's just nuts, get
Yeah.
yourself an agent. I said, you need somebody who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely.
But that was just something I was just kind of dreaming up
A lot of people
and trying to
are doing
figure
that.
out, okay, how can
No, a lot of people are doing that.
approach that? Because it's, at the end of the day, I mean, we've always shown a lot of homes to a lot of people who never made a nickel.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how much you think you know.
And we're the only business out there that's
giving.
giving back money like crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, even in a lender, lenders give it back, but they put it back in.
yeah.
They're
Where,
not giving it
Yeah,
away.
they're not
Right.
giving anything away, they're
Right.
just putting it on,
No.
but,
on another
He's just
line.
shuffling it.
right, but you see agents giving it back all
Yeah.
the time, and I'm like, why are you doing
That's
that?
not my game.
No, not mine either. But I'm like, it makes no sense. I'm like, you don't go to a doctor and say, give me money back.
Yeah.
I'd love to,
There's
but.
absolutely nobody giving me any money back.
That's the thing, and I told people, I said, they're looking and.
Thank you so much,
You
AJ.
pre-qualify somebody, that's what I love, and they're working with it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They ruined, well, I hate to say that. To me, they ruined the industry.
Big time.
They are ruined.
The good thing with what's happening with the settlement is I think a lot of them are gonna leave.
Yeah.
Because are gonna leave, a lot of those agents, because they aren't gonna know how to operate when they have to get paid by their clients.
Yeah, because that same client is the one that don't want to give them anything. That's the one that want to take it all back from them.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're gonna rephrase
Can they
that.
actually put that in
Oh, yeah,
their,
they do it all the time.
and they can just put in there, I'm gonna give you a rebate?
They do now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a ton of agents.
yeah. And I mean a lot of money.
And I tell
I
them,
know.
like, they keep less than they really, I mean, like, it's ridiculous. I'm like, why are you doing that? But you're not giving any service either.
They get back their commission, the selling agent
Yeah,
gets
it's
back
6% or giving back 5.
Yep.
And I'm like, why? Yeah.
It's too hard.
I think,
Yeah.
in
Enjoy
a
it.
lot of cases,
Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice seeing you again.
for us, it's because some of them have too good value. But eventually value goes away.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's gonna go, he doesn't do a thing. And then 5 years from now, those houses, the prices are gonna go up, but everybody's gonna sell at the same time. So now you're gonna have an overinflux of inventory. Their taxes are gonna go up. They're gonna be like, why didn't you tell me this? Things are gonna happen. What's gonna happen, you know? So,
It's a crazy time.
yeah.
I want nothing to do with that.
Oh, yeah, just as well, right? Oh, that was good.
But Deborah, see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Come to the role play. Bien, bien. Gracias, gracias. Sí. No, pero sí tengo una cita a las 2, así que. Sí. I forgot to. So.
They're asking if did you sign out? Hell no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.
That's it.
Actually,
I'm sorry, my head is spinning so many things. Actually, it's in the kitchen. You wrote it. You okay?
Yeah, I ordered it on Amazon, I finally got it the other day.
Uh-huh.
I come to put it in, and as I was pulling it open, to open up the piece to put it in, I thought,